Chapter 898. Feeling Yi Guqin's cold gaze, Su Wenbin and Su Jingjing trembled violently. Without the slightest hesitation, they immediately retreated and left. If they were to face Yi Guqin now, there would be no suspense. But how could Yi Guqin let them go? Although a fly was small, it was still annoying. Yi Guqin took a step forward, and arrived in front of Su Wenbin and Su Jingjing in the blink of an eye. Compared to enemies, traitors were more hateful. Seeing this, Qin Paisai, Han Lingxian, and the others did not have the slightest sympathy on their faces. Previously, the Su siblings betrayed Skywind Ridge without the slightest hesitation. Now, they even attracted the lightning spirit to frame them. Spare my life, I'm from the Su family. Su Wenbin's body was trembling, and his voice was shaking. No one was unafraid of death, and people like Su Wenbin were even more afraid of death. Otherwise, when they were surrounded by the two great ridges, he would not have betrayed them so quickly. Dugu Wubai, we were wrong, we shouldn't have treated you like this, let us go, we can make up for it. Su Jingjing's delicate face was also incomparably pale. These two siblings no longer had the arrogance, wanton, and condescending attitude they had when they were at Skywind Ridge. Their bodies trembled, and they looked at Yi Guqin with fear in their eyes. Facing such people, Yi Guqin was too lazy to say anything more. Two sword lights swept out, ending their lives. You, really are. Su Wenbin clutched his neck and fell to the ground, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Su Jingjing was the same, lying in a pool of blood. At the last moment of their lives, they finally understood what kind of terrifying character they had provoked. It was a pity that he had comprehended it too late. Let's go. After casually killing the two, Yi Guqin said indifferently. Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, and the others also glanced at Yi Guqin. Those pitch-black eyes did not have the slightest fluctuation of emotion, like a cold death god. For the first time, Han Lingxian felt that she did not understand Yi Guqin at all. Soon, Yi Guqin led the people from Tianfeng Ridge to the junction between the lower and middle levels. When they looked around, they saw a huge screen of lightning blocking their path. The reason why the lightning prison mountain was divided into lower, middle, upper, and peak levels was because of the existence of these lightning curtains. A faint fear appeared in the eyes of Qin Paisai and the rest as they looked at the lightning screen that was pouring down like a waterfall. Follow me, Yi Guqin said. After bringing Qin Paisai to the middle level, he would have fulfilled his promise to Qin Zhen. That won't do. If we enter together, the power of the lightning screen will increase greatly. Qin Paisai smiled bitterly and shook her head. If it was so easy to pass through the lightning screen, many people would have already reached the middle level. It was precisely because this lightning screen was too difficult to pass that a large number of skyprides were blocked. Don't worry, all of you stand behind me, Yi Guqin said calmly. Han Lingxian looked at Yi Guqin with a trace of infatuation. She could only feel this kind of security from Yi Guqin. Amitba, don't hesitate. Follow Big Brother and you'll have meat to eat. Kong Kong was not worried at all as he put his palms together and chanted. Little monk, do you still eat meat? Qin Paisai and the rest could not help but laugh. The heavy atmosphere also eased a little. After a moment of hesitation, Qin Paisai and the rest still chose to follow behind Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin stomped his foot on the ground, and a surge of extremely powerful true energy burst out, turning into a barrier that enveloped Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, Kong Kong, and the rest. Then, everyone rushed towards the lightning screen. The moment they touched it, a loud rumble resounded. The power of lightning crazily poured down like a waterfall, drowning Yi Guqin and the rest. Don't overestimate yourself. Outside the lightning prison mountain, the purple smoke territorial lord and the yellow dragon territorial lord coldly snorted. They could not wait to see the heavenly wind ridge get annihilated and fall under the lightning tide. Qin Zhen's palms were also sweating as he stared at the place where the lightning surged. Boom! At this moment, the place where the lightning fell seemed to tremble. Silver-purple lightning spread out, resisting the lightning tide. That is. Everyone's gaze froze. A young man's figure slowly stepped into the air. Endless silver-purple lightning surged out of his body, resisting the lightning tide. It was as if he alone was enough to resist the boiling lightning tide. "You can pass," Yi Guqin said. Han Lingxian, Kong Kong, Qin Paisai, and the rest flashed and quickly passed through. When they stepped on the ground of the middle layer, Qin Paisai let out a long sigh of relief. They did not have much true energy left. They had relied on Yi Guqin's strength to reach the middle layer. At this moment, they looked back and were shocked to see Yi Guqin alone standing in the sky, undergoing the baptism of countless lightning tides. He was like the Lord of Lightning. Why didn't young Master Dugu pass? Zhuo Qiuqing was extremely surprised. If it were anyone else, it would be good if they could barely pass, but Yi Guqin was still lingering. He's using the power of lightning to refine his true energy body. What a monster! Qin Paisai exclaimed. Thinking back to the time when she looked down on Yi Guqin, Qin Paisai's cheeks burned. After a full hour, Yi Guqin rushed out of the lightning screen. His body and true energy had been refined once again. Especially his true energy. Yi Guqin vaguely felt that he was not too far away from breaking through to the fourth stage. Yi Guqin landed in front of Han Lingxian and the rest. "I've fulfilled my promise. What do you plan to do next?" "Thank you for your help, young Master Dugu. We were blind before and doubted you many times." Qin Paisai, Zhuo Qiuqing, Zhen Lang, and the rest sincerely apologized. "There's no need to say such things." Yi Guqin waved his hand. He did not care about this kind of thing. "We know our own limits. It's fortunate that we were able to reach the middle layer. Next, we'll withdraw," Qin Paisai said. They were already satisfied with the opportunity to join the 5 great academies. They had nothing else to ask for. It would be difficult for them to continue on the next path unless they were top geniuses. "This little monk will continue," Kong Kong said. Yi Guqin nodded slightly and did not say anything. Everyone had their own choice. He turned around and continued to climb up under the terrifying pressure of the lightning tide. "Young Master Dugu!" Han Lingxian couldn't help but shout. Yi Guqin stopped in his tracks. "Lingxian believes in you. You can reach the peak," Han Lingxian said firmly. "Heh." Yi Guqin smiled and continued to move forward without turning back. Can young Master Dugu really reach the peak? Even though they knew that Yi Guqin's strength was extraordinary, the peak of the Thunder Prison Mountain was filled with endless heavenly lightning. Perhaps only people at the level of Hua Wuxiu were qualified to reach the peak. Qin Paisai and the others were not too sure. Young Master Dugu is someone who can create miracles. Han Lingxian firmly believed. Whether it was comprehending the imperial sword steel or the kneeling of the Han family ancestor, or the 3 great heavenly gates shaking the world, Yi Guqin had created countless shocking miracles along the way. Therefore, Han Lingxian was looking forward to seeing Yi Guqin reach the peak and look down on everyone. Chapter 899. Next, Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, and the rest left the Thunder Prison Mountain. They had already obtained the opportunity to enter the 5 academies. As for Yi Guqin and Kong Kong, they continued to climb the Thunder Prison Mountain. After entering the middle level, the lightning tide became even more turbulent and rushed down like a waterfall. There were only a few dozen sky prides who could continue climbing. The rest of the sky prides were either eliminated or chose to give up after stepping into the middle level. Facing the turbulent lightning tide, Yi Guqin did not have any defensive means and directly endured it with his body. His physique became more solid. Most importantly, after being tempered by the lightning power, his true qi was faintly showing signs of advancing to the 4th stage. However, what surprised Yi Guqin the most was Kong Kong. Kong Kong's strength was at the 5th stage of the Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to hold on for so long. However, golden light appeared on the surface of Kong Kong's body, making him look like a little golden man plated with gold. On the surface of his body, swastikas vaguely appeared, which looked very strange. Kong Kong really has a secret. Looking at Kong Kong's strange appearance, Yi Guchen thought to himself. Kong Kong's physique seemed to be unusual. However, Yi Guchen did not ask further. Everyone had their own secrets. Comfortable. Kong Kong was a little smug, and his chubby cheeks were trembling. Not far away, some other sky prides gritted their teeth. Except for Hua Xingjie and a few other sky prides, most of the remaining sky prides were fighting hard. Look, Hua Xingjie broke through to the upper level. Outside the Thunder Prison Mountain, there were some exclamations. Hua Xingjie waved the folding fan in his hand, and sword chi rushed into the sky, breaking the lightning light curtain in the middle level and entering the upper level of the Thunder Prison Mountain. Hua Xingjie was the first to break through to the upper level. Then, Yin Wufeng, Shengguan Yan, Gui Jianqiu, and the others broke through one after another. After that, Yushuang Yan, Yan Choke, and the others broke through again. Hey, do you guys think that Sword Demon is on the Thunder Prison Mountain? Some of the spectators were very curious. He's definitely there. How can a genius who can suppress the top 3 of the sword rankings be eliminated? It's just that we don't know who he is for now. Outside the Thunder Prison Mountain, everyone was discussing animatedly. They were all guessing who the Sword Demon was. Inside the Thunder Prison Mountain, Yi Guchen was still undergoing the baptism of the Thunder Tide. However, he discovered that as time passed, the assistance provided by the lightning energy was becoming smaller and smaller. It seems like this force of refinement has reached its limit. If I want to improve further, I'll have to reach the peak, or acquire the 9-Dragon Thunder Prison. Yi Guchen's eyes flickered. At this point, he no longer had to deliberately slow down because the tempering power was no longer effective on him. Since that was the case, Yi Guchen naturally wouldn't waste any time. Boom! Yi Guchen activated his boundless sea of qi, and a terrifying true qi burst out from his body like a tornado. Yi Guchen stomped his feet on the ground, and his body flashed out like a cannonball. Wherever he passed, the thunder tides split open and broke through like a bolt of lightning. Previously, he had been resisting with his physical body. Now that he had activated his true qi to resist, his climbing speed immediately skyrocketed. This Brother Dugu is amazing. Kong Kong was stunned for a moment, and then hurriedly chased after him. Rumble. The turbulent thunder tide couldn't stop Yi Guchen's footsteps at all. He rushed directly to the barrier between the middle and upper layers at an extremely fast speed. Break! Yi Guchen didn't stop at all. The extreme void dark thunder and purple lightning nether thunder in his body merged into one and turned into a silver purple void dark thunder. Yi Guchen raised his hand and the purple void dark thunder spread out, turning into a thunder waterfall, and bombarding the thunder barrier in front of him. With a loud crack, the thunder light curtain between the middle and upper layers was directly torn apart by the purple void dark thunder. Yi Guchen's body flashed and stepped onto the upper layer. That young man from Skywind Ridge is so fast. That young man is called Dugu Wubai. He's really a dark horse. He killed Yu Yuankue, who ranked 65th on the sword roll, and defeated Yushuang Yan just now. Yi Guchen's rapid speed attracted attention even if he didn't want to. Is this young Master Dugu's true strength? The Sky Prides of Skywind Ridge, who had already left the Thunder Prison Mountain, were so shocked that their jaws almost fell to the ground. Yi Guchen had shown such speed from the beginning. Perhaps even Hua Xingjie couldn't beat him. I even said before that we shouldn't let young Master Dugu drag us down. In the end, we're the ones who are really dragging him down. Qin Paisai was completely convinced and smiled bitterly. Zuiqiu Qing, Zhen Lang, and the other Sky Prides were also a little ashamed. If it weren't for helping them break through the middle layer, Yi Guchen's speed wouldn't be slower than Hua Xingjie's. Only Han Lingshuan's beautiful eyes flashed with unprecedented splendor. She had to admit that such a young man was very attractive. Qin Zhen also sighed. He had made the right bet this time. The purple smoke overlord and the yellow dragon overlord looked as if they had eaten a fly. With Yi Guchen's current strength, it was almost certain that he would enter the 5 academies. He might even be valued by the academies. At that time, it would be wishful thinking for them to take revenge. Yiguchin broke through the upper layer of the Thunder Prison Mountain. That terrifying lightning tide seemed to have multiplied, turning into one huge wave after another as it smashed over. Even with Yiguchin's cultivation, he still felt the pressure. However, his speed didn't slow down much. Not long after Yiguchin broke through the upper layer, Kong Kong also broke through. Golden swastika runes appeared on his body to resist the thunder tide's bombardment. There were only 20 to 30 sky prides still in the Thunder Prison Mountain. These people were the ones that the 5 academies really wanted to compete for. On the 5 ships in the sky, the people from the 5 academies began to pay attention to the Thunder Prison Mountain. Previously, the Thunder Prison Mountain was a mixed bag of good and bad people, so the people from the academies didn't bother to observe. But now, those who could stay were all 1 in a million sky prides. As expected, the first place of this selection is undoubtedly Hua Xingjie. On the ship of Tensei College, Elder Hua Emo stroked his beard and smiled. Hua Xingjie was a member of the Hua family, so he was naturally happy. That's not necessarily true. Have you forgotten about the sword demon? Bei Xian, elder of Sacred Cliff College, retorted. The sword demon was only amazing during the test. I haven't seen his true strength with my own eyes. The test is just a test, Elder Hua Emo said lightly. He didn't mind enrolling the sword demon into Tensei College, but it couldn't overshadow Hua Xingjie's excellence. On the ship of Tianxian College, Mu Xingzu's attention wasn't on the Thunder Prison Mountain. She wasn't interested in coming. On the other hand, Jiang Fengmian was a disciple of Sun Moon College's Holy Emblem. He was supposed to be on the ship of Sun Moon College, but now he was beside Mu Xingzu. Miss Mu, who do you think will be the winner of this selection? Jiang Fengmian was like a modest gentleman, and his tone was gentle. I don't know, and I don't care. Mu Xingzu was absent-minded. She had been in this state ever since she heard the news of Yiguchin's death. Hey, I think it will be Hua Xingjie, and that mysterious sword demon is also possible. I wonder who will be the sword demon. Ying Lang chimed in. Do you think everyone is worthy of the title of sword demon? Mu Xingzhu sighed sorrowfully with a knot in her stomach. Chapter 900. Back then, in order to save her, Yiguchin transformed into the sword demon and wiped out hundreds of people with a single sword strike. Blood rained down from the sky as he opened up a path of life and death. Mu Xingzhu still could not forget that scene. In Mu Xingzhu's heart, only Yiguchin was worthy of the title of sword master and sword demon. The rest of the people were just imposters. Therefore, Mu Xingzhu did not care about the so-called sword demon. Jiang Fengmian did not care about Mu Xingzhu's indifference and smiled gently. Oh, then let's wait and see. Under the attention of the people from the 5 great academies, as well as all the lords, aristocratic families, and heaven's prides outside the mountain, the remaining 20 to 30 heaven's prides began their final assault on the peak. Although everyone knew that it was almost impossible to break through the upper level and reach the peak. In the past, only the top 15 on the sword ranking and above were qualified to reach the peak. Do you think the sword demon has a chance to reach the peak? It's hard to say. Although the sword demon overshadowed the top 3 on the sword ranking in the 3 heavenly gates test, we don't know his true strength. Outside the Thunder Prison Mountain, countless people were discussing. Although they did not know who the sword demon was for the time being, everyone was certain in their hearts. The real sword demon must be hidden among these 20 to 30 people. Amidst wave after wave of lightning, Yiguchin went against the trend. Purple void lightning wrapped around his body, and his vigorous true qi broke through the lightning waves. We're almost at the peak. Yiguchin looked into the distance. The back of Hua Xingjie and the others was even higher. Endless lightning flooded the peak, and one could vaguely feel an explosive sword qi. It must be the aura emitted by the 9-dragon thunder prison. Yiguchin was determined to win the 9-dragon thunder prison. Finally, Hua Xingjie and the others approached the peak. However, they suddenly stopped in their tracks. Because there was not only a thicker lightning barrier between the upper level and the peak. Most importantly, outside the barrier, there were 4 lightning spirits with extremely powerful auras. The cultivation of each lightning spirit had reached the divine dwelling stage. 4 thunder spirits comparable to the divine dwelling stage. Seeing this, the faces of the remaining 20 to 30 geniuses turned extremely dark. After persevering to this point, everyone wanted to reach the peak. After all, if they managed to reach the peak, not only would they be highly sought after by the 5 academies, but they would also be given the identity of a silver emblem disciple. In the 5 great academies, the students were divided into bronze emblem disciples, silver emblem disciples, gold emblem disciples, and the most honorable holy emblem disciples. Students of different ranks received different treatment. If he could directly obtain the identity of a silver emblem disciple, it would undoubtedly be much more convenient for him to enter the 5 major academies. He would also be able to obtain more resources. But the 4 divine dwelling stage lightning spirits were like 4 mountains, blocking the path of all the heaven prides. Even Hua Xingjie, this kind of 9th phase peak heaven's pride, had an incomparably solemn expression. Although there was only a slight difference between the peak of the 9th phase and the divine dwelling stage, the difference in strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. Not to mention that the thunder spirit's cultivation was much higher than that of a cultivator of the same level. Moreover, they were still under the impact of the lightning tide, and their true qi was being depleted every moment. Everyone, there is only one way left, Hua Xingjie said. The eyes of the other heaven prides flashed. Yushuang Yan glanced at Yi Guqin with a hint of coldness and wariness. The heaven prides who were walking in front did not see the battle between Yushuang Yan and Yi Guqin. Therefore, Hua Xingjie and the others did not know that Yi Guqin had the strength to defeat Yushuang Yan. Yushuang Yan did not take the initiative to say it, as if she was scheming something. Looking at Yushuang Yan's cold eyes, Yi Guqin's expression was indifferent. He did not take the initiative to attack. He wanted to see what Hua Xingjie had in mind. The little monk, Kong Kong, also came up and stood beside Yi Guqin. I'm sure everyone knows that even without the 4 thunder spirits, some of you will not be able to break through the lightning barrier, Hua Xingjie said indifferently. Young Master Hua, what do you mean by that? A heaven's pride asked coldly. Heaven's prides who could climb to the top were all capable. They were not ordinary people. Hua Xingjie's words were a little harsh. I'm just speaking the truth. I have a suggestion. Let those who are weaker and have no hope of breaking through the barrier distract the thunder spirits. Of course, my Hua family will definitely compensate you. Hua Xingjie's lips curved into a faint smile. His words caused the expressions of the surrounding heaven's prides to change. Hua Xingjie wanted to use them as cannon fodder. Hua Xingjie, this is not a good idea, Yan Chouke said. Among the heaven's prides present, the weaker ones were mostly from the faction of rogue cultivators. What's wrong with that? We're not chasing them away for free. Young Master Hua has already done his best, Yushuang Yan said. She and Yan Chouke had always been at odds. I agree as well. Some of you here indeed have no hope of reaching the top. Why don't you make some contributions? My Yin family will also compensate you. We won't mistreat you. Yin Wufeng also stood out with an evil smile on his face. Although Shangguan Yan was also a member of the aristocratic family, she did not speak. Her almond-shaped eyes darted around, waiting to see what would happen. What if we don't agree? Gui Jianqiu asked. If we don't agree, then no one will be able to reach the top. Wouldn't that be a pity? Hua Xingjie said with a faint smile. The atmosphere became tense. Vaguely, a strong smell of gunpowder filled the air. Yushuang Yan glanced at Yi Guqin. Her gaze was deep and cold. She said, Shuang Yan has a suggestion. These two, one is a child with only a stage 5 cultivation, and the other is only a stage 3 cultivation. They are suitable candidates. Yushuang Yan changed the topic and directed it to Yi Guqin and Kong Kong. Oh, indeed, Hua Shengjie glanced at Yi Guqin with a faint look of surprise in his eyes. Obviously, he did not notice that Yi Guqin was only a stage 3 cultivation. He was surprised that Yi Guqin could make it this far with only a stage 3 cultivation. It was very surprising. But no matter how surprising, a stage 3 was still a stage 3. With such a cultivation, it was impossible for him to pass through the lightning barrier. That can be done. I agree. Yin Wufeng glanced at Yi Guqin and smiled evilly. Shangguan Yan did not say a word. Instead, she looked at Yi Guqin with great interest. She knew a little about Yi Guqin's true strength. She was also very curious about how Yi Guqin would deal with the current situation. Ba. This female benefactor's chest is not bad, but her heart is too weak. Kong Kong clasped her hands together and chanted the name of Buddha. She shook her head regretfully. This kind of appearance was somewhat amusing. What did you say? Yu Shuang Yan's face was even colder. A little monk dared to blaspheme her like this? Yi Guqin's face was calm. He raised his eyelids. Yu Shuang Yan wanted to use this method to deal with him. Brother, my Hua family will compensate you. Please take action to lure away those thunder spirits. Hua Shengjie said calmly. Although his tone was calm, the toughness in it was obvious. Please do it. Yin Wufeng's face was cold. In his eyes, Yi Guqin and Kong Kong did not have the courage to go against the elites of the aristocratic families. Yu Shuang Yan's lips curled into a cold smile. Indeed, she might not be able to deal with Yi Guqin personally. But so what? She had plenty of ways to deal with Yi Guqin. On the other side, Gui Jianqiu, Yan Chou, and the others frowned slightly but did not act rashly. After all, they were strangers to Yi Guqin. Yan Chou had only seen Yi Guqin once at the Tianfeng banquet. There was no friendship between them. Are you sure you want to attack me? Yi Guqin turned his head and glanced coldly at Hua Shengjie and the others. Chapter 901. Yi Guqin believed in the principle of not offending others if they didn't offend him first. However, if someone didn't know what was good for them and tried to provoke him, Yi Guqin wouldn't show any mercy. Yu Yuankue, Zi Yuexin, Huang Feiyun, and the others were examples of this. Oh, you mean we can't attack you? Before Hua Shengjie could say anything, Yin Wufeng tilted his head and a wicked glint flashed in his eyes. The Yin family was also a powerful family in the Sword Dao Alliance. They had a false sage and were not weaker than the Hua family, Jiang family, and Shangguan family. Although Yin Wufeng wasn't the most outstanding prodigy in the Yin family, his talent and strength weren't weak either. In the Sword Dynasty, there weren't many people that Yin Wufeng didn't dare to provoke. You can attack me, but you'll have to bear the consequences. Yi Guqin's tone was equally flat. His attitude surprised Gui Jianqiu, Yan Chou, and the others. After all, not everyone had the guts to talk to Hua Shengjie and Yin Wufeng with such an attitude. Alright, I'd like to see what the consequences of provoking you are. Yin Wufeng's figure flashed as he charged directly at Yi Guqin. There was no time to delay. Yin Wufeng wanted to capture Yi Guqin as soon as possible and use him to attract the thunder spirits. This would give them a chance to enter the top floor. It's Yin Wufeng. He actually attacked Duge Wubai. Yin Wufeng, ranked 23rd on the Sword Dao Alliance sword list. He's second only to Hua Shengjie in this selection. I wonder how that young man provoked Yin Wufeng. I'm afraid Hua Shengjie and Yin Wufeng want to capture some people as cannon fodder. Otherwise, with the 4 thunder spirits guarding them, how could they reach the top? At the foot of the Thunder Prison Mountain, everyone was watching, including those who had been eliminated and those who had been selected. This is bad. Han Lingxian and the others' hearts clenched. Although Yi Guqin had defeated Yu Shuangyan, Yin Wufeng was stronger than Yu Shuangyan. On the other side, the people from the 5 great academies also noticed the battle in the sky. The Yin family really knows how to pick opponents. Do you want to use others as cannon fodder? Bei Xian Elder from Sacred Cliff College sneered. At Long River College, an elder from the Yin family said indifferently, "The winner is the king, and the loser is the bandit. Moreover, he's just a trash with a cultivation level of stage 3. So what if he reaches the top?" Elder Yin Li is right. My Tensei College will never accept such a person. If Sacred Cliff College wants him, then he will belong to your Sacred Cliff College, Elder Hua Mo said indifferently. "Oh, are you sure?" Bei Xian Elder's eyes lit up. Although the others looked down on Yiguchen's stage 3 strength, Bei Xian Elder felt that Yiguchen was not that simple. Being able to reach the top with a cultivation level of stage 3 didn't mean that his cultivation level was weak, but it showed his potential. Of course. My Tensei College only accepts monsters, such as Hua Shengjie, Yin Wufeng, and that sword demon, Elder Hua Mo said indifferently. Behind Elder Hua Mo, Hua Tengfei's eyes fell on Yiguchen, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Although Yiguchen's face had changed, Hua Tengfei still felt a trace of familiarity with his figure. On the Tianxian College's ship, Mu Xingzu's dim almond eyes suddenly focused when she inadvertently glanced at Yiguchen. A trace of familiarity, Mu Xingzu's delicate body suddenly trembled, and her eyes focused. Jiang Fengmian, who was standing beside her, saw Mu Xingzu's strange expression, and also secretly observed. At the top of the Thunder Prison Mountain, a great battle broke out. Yin Wufeng flicked his finger, and his vigorous true energy turned into streaks of sword radiance, which swept out. Yiguchen also flicked his finger, and used the 6-pulse divine sword. His true energy was compressed in his meridians, and it turned into streaks of sword radiance that shot out. Boom! 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 The streaks of sword radiance burst out, and the surrounding thunder tide collapsed. Yin Wufeng's lips curled into an evil smile, and he blasted his palm toward Yiguchen. Yiguchen drew his sword, and stabbed it toward Yin Wufeng's palm. Yin Wufeng directly grabbed the edge of Yiguchen's sword with one hand. The surrounding skyprides focused their gazes. Yin Wufeng actually wanted to grab Yiguchen's sword with his bare hand. Clang! However, when Yin Wufeng's palm grabbed Yiguchen's sword, the sound of metal clashing rang out, and sparks burst out, and the air shook. Swoosh! A streak of sword radiance suddenly shot out from Yin Wufeng's palm, and it flew toward Yiguchen's face. This scene was extremely sudden, and it was beyond many people's expectations. It's the Yin family's unique skill, the sword in palm. Gue Jianchou said in a serious tone. The sword in palm was the Yin family's unique skill. The sword was hidden in the palm, and the speed of the attack was extremely fast, and it could catch the opponent off guard. You should be able to finish him off with one move. Hua Shengjie shook his head and smiled. In his opinion, Yiguchen's resistance was laughable. Han Lingxian and the others who were watching the battle could not help but feel their hearts skip a beat, and they almost cried out involuntarily. Seeing this, Yiguchen directly stretched out his other hand, and directly grabbed the sword in palm that was thrusting toward him. Fool, do you think your hand is a divine weapon? Yin Wufeng raised his eyebrows and looked at him coldly. Just when he thought Yiguchen's hand would be cut off in the next moment, clang! The crisp sound of metal colliding was heard, and greenish-gold light flowed out from Yiguchen's palm. He directly grabbed the sword in palm with his bare hands, and then viciously crushed it. Yiguchen had a 2-star ancient god physical body, flawless body of Vajra, and a perfect physical body. His current physical body was already extremely strong, and it was not difficult for him to crush an ordinary divine weapon with his bare hands. At the same time that he crushed the sword in palm, Yiguchen infused his vital energy into the blade, and it shook violently, shaking off Yin Wufeng's grip on his hand. He flipped his hand and executed the immortal murdering sword technique at Yin Wufeng. Boom! Yin Wufeng's figure suddenly retreated, and he stared at Yiguchen with great surprise. What a strong physical body! The other sky prides were also surprised. Yiguchen's physical body was too strong. Even Hua Shengjie raised his eyebrows slightly. He did not care about Yiguchen's vital energy cultivation, but his physical body was surprising. In the sky, on the ship of Tensei College, Hua Tengfei looked at Yiguchen with suspicion. The scene of Yi Guqin crushing the sword in palm reminded him of the time when his sword was crushed by Dugu Wubai in the Chuyun dynasty. It was too similar. No way. Hua Tengfei could not believe it. After all, Yi Guqin had not recovered his vital energy cultivation at that time. From a cripple without vital energy to a level 3 spirit bridge of heaven and earth? Hua Tengfei could not believe it, but he still paid attention. You do have some physical strength, but that is not a reason for you to be arrogant. Yin Wufeng was serious, and the aura of a level 9 spirit bridge of heaven and earth completely erupted. What he wanted was to end the battle as quickly as possible. Otherwise, he would consume a lot of energy under the impact of the lightning tide. 9 Hell's Sword. Yin Wufeng drew his sword, and a pitch-black sword energy that was dozens of feet long slashed at Yi Guqin. Chapter 902. Yi Guqin's physical body had indeed exceeded Yin Wufeng's expectations. However, in the Sword Dynasty, physical cultivators were not worthy of the spotlight. Cultivation level and swordsmanship were the basis of measuring a prodigy's strength. Yin Wufeng immediately unleashed his signature technique, the 9 Darkness Sword. The pitch-black sword radiance carried a destructive aura as it shot toward Yi Guqin. Even the surrounding lightning waves were parted. Yi Guqin's eyes flashed when he saw the ferocious sword technique. Yi Guqin pointed his sword at the sky. True energy burst out, forming a whirlwind that spread out. A dazzling silver sword radiance broke through the hole, as if it could sweep through the 9 heavens and the galaxy. It was the first move of the 3 ultimate holy swords, the star-shattering sword. Boom! The silver sword radiance and the pitch-black sword energy collided. They wore each other down, causing ripples to appear. The 3 ultimate holy swords. Han Lingxian, who was watching from the sidelines, muttered. Her eyes were dazed. The 3 ultimate holy swords of the Han family had actually unleashed such power in the hands of an outsider. Of course, Han Lingxian was not jealous. She was just happy for Yi Guqin. Bang! After the collision, both of their figures retreated. Yin Wufeng's expression was completely frozen. His gaze was fixed on Yi Guqin. If it was before, he would not have taken Yi Guqin seriously. But now, Yin Wufeng had unleashed his full strength, yet he still could not defeat his opponent. What did this mean? Although Yi Guqin's cultivation level was only at stage 3, his true strength was comparable to stage 9 prodigies like them. I don't believe it. Yin Wufeng's expression was as solemn as water. How could he be willing to fight to a draw with a nameless nobody? 9 heavenly fiend swords. Yin Wufeng changed his sword technique again and unleashed the Yin family's emperor-level sword technique. The 9 heavenly fiend swords had a total of 9 moves. Each move was stronger than the previous one. If the 9 moves were combined and superimposed, it would be even more powerful. Boom! Yin Wufeng directly displayed the first sword. Yi Guqin still used the star-breaking sword to block the attack. Then, the second and third sword strikes followed. Streaks of sword aura with dense killing intent swept out, slashing towards Yi Guqin. However, they were all blocked by Yi Guqin. Yin Wufeng slashed out 9 times in a row, but they were all blocked by Yi Guqin. How is this possible? The surrounding skyprides were all dumbfounded. This brat really has some skills. Shangguan Yan's small mouth was also agape, as if she had fallen into a dream. She was now rejoicing. Although she and Yi Guqin had a small conflict before, it was fortunate that they didn't fight. Why? He actually has such strength. Yushuang Yan could no longer remain calm. Yi Guqin's performance had far exceeded her expectations. Yin Wufeng's strength was even stronger than hers. Yushuang Yan realized that in her heart, there was a rare trace of regret. She regretted provoking Yi Guqin because of Yu Yuankue. Hua Xingjie's gaze froze. There was no longer any contempt on his face. Being able to contend with Yin Wufeng had already proven Yi Guqin's strength. Dugu Wubai from Tianfeng Ridge can actually contend with Yin Wufeng. In that case, he really has the strength to be in the top 30 of the sword roll. Seeing the battle on the Thunder Prison Mountain, some of the spectating lords were surprised. Although the sky prides on the sword roll changed frequently, the top 30 sky prides rarely changed. As for Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, and the others, they had already gotten used to Yiguchen's surprises. Sister Lingxian, you were right. Young Master Dugu is really a person who can create miracles, Qin Paisai murmured. Young Master Dugu's crisis is not over yet. Han Lingxian was still worried. Although Yiguchen could contend with Yin Wufeng, there was still Yushuang Yan, Hua Xingjie, and the others at the side. How is this possible? How can you resist my sword move? 9 swords in one, Sky Demon Void Shattering Sword. Yin Wufeng shouted loudly. True Qi surged as he slashed out 9 swords in succession. Then, the 9 swords overlapped and burst out an even more terrifying sword Qi, slashing down on Yiguchen's head. Yiguchen activated his true Qi, and the sword blade vibrated violently. He raised his sword vertically, and the tip of the sword drew an arc of light, like a lonely crescent moon. That magnificent and deep crescent sword light collided with Yin Wufeng's move. This was the second move of the 3 ultimate holy swords, Earth Moon Absolute Sword. Rumble. It was as if countless thunderbolts had exploded. Cracks appeared on the incomparably hard mountain that had been struck by lightning, and the mountain rocks were shattered. Under everyone's gazes, the Blue Moon sword arc directly broke apart Yin Wufeng's sword move, and carried the remaining momentum as it fell towards Yin Wufeng. Yin Wufeng's complexion abruptly changed as he hastily raised his sword to block the attack. However, the impact of the attack caused him to cough up blood repeatedly as his figure flew backwards like a kite with its string cut. Following that, the impact of the lightning tide had charred his body black, and he had suffered heavy injuries. Yin Wufeng, ranked 23rd on the sword ranking, had been defeated. He was defeated by a dark horse. On the ship of Long River College, Elder Yinli, who had just said that the winner was the king and the loser was the bandit, now had an extremely gloomy expression on his face. Yin Wufeng was the genius of their Yin family, but now he had been defeated by a dark horse in such a manner. This was really a disgrace to the Yin family. However, the people of the college were not allowed to interfere with the selection of the 5 academies. This was a rule that no one could violate. Even if Yinli was unhappy, he could not interfere at this moment. Elder Hua Mo's expression was also slightly embarrassed. After all, he had looked down on Yiguchen before, and even said that he would never accept Yiguchen. However, Yiguchen had defeated Yin Wufeng in the blink of an eye, which made him feel as if he had been slapped in the face. It would be impolite for Sacred Cliff College to reject such a good seedling. Bei Xian Elder was overjoyed when he saw this scene. In the past, Sacred Cliff College had always picked up the leftovers of other colleges. Those geniuses with real talent and potential were not very willing to join Sacred Cliff College. However, Bei Xian Elder was happy that Elder Hua Mo had personally pushed a genius who was comparable to the top 30 on the sword ranking to Sacred Cliff College. It's just the top 30 on the sword ranking. Our Tensei College has no shortage of geniuses. We can just accept the sword demon when the time comes, Elder Hua Mo said coldly. The smile on Bei Xian Elder's face disappeared when he heard this. With the talent that the sword demon had shown, it was possible that he would look down on Sacred Cliff College. On the Thunder Prison Mountain, Yin Wufeng's body was charred black, and the corners of his mouth and chin were covered in blood. He stared at Yiguchen with an extremely cold gaze. Who are you? Yin Wufeng's expression was cold and stern. At the same time, he had some guesses in his heart. I didn't expect that we had misjudged you. You are not a nobody. Hua Xingjie also felt that something was wrong. If they still did not suspect Yiguchen's identity at this time, they would be too stupid. Could it be? Yushuang Yan also thought of something at the same time. Not only them, but the geniuses, lords, and people from the aristocratic families who were watching the battle from the sidelines also reacted. I remember that Dugu Wubai seems to be from Tianfeng Ridge, you mean? Some of the lords' expressions suddenly froze. An unprecedented shock appeared in their eyes. It can't be. Many people's expressions were dull. At this moment, everyone, whether it was the people on the Thunder Prison Mountain, the spectators on the sidelines, or even the people from the 5 major academies in the sky, focused their attention on Yiguchin. He had become the focus of everyone's attention at this moment. He felt that countless gazes were directed at him, as if they wanted to penetrate his body. Yiguchin's lips curved into a faint smile. At this point, there was no need to hide anything. A terrifying wave of true qi, accompanied by a strong sword essence, burst out from Yiguchin's body and swept in all directions, engulfing the sky. He no longer held back and truly released his own strength. I am the Sword Demon, Dugu Wubai. Chapter 903. His cold voice was like a clap of thunder, exploding in all directions on the Thunder Prison Mountain. Everyone's mind was buzzing, as if they had been shocked silly. Yiguchin looked at the sky disdainfully, his black hair fluttering in the wind. Vigorous true energy and sword intent exploded, forming a biting cold storm around him that swept in all directions. Sword Demon. It was a name that shocked everyone. In the Skywind Ridge, he had broken the sword techniques of many prodigies on the sword ranking, including Hua Wuxiu's sword technique. In the first round of the 5 academies selection, he had defeated the top 3 on the sword ranking, Purple, Jian Jinghong, and Hua Wuxiu. 3 lights illuminated the world, illuminating the sword dynasty. The sword demon was like a peerless genius in the sword Dao, rising in the sword dynasty. Many people were guessing who the sword demon was. But now, after Yiguchin admitted his identity, they were all stunned. Everyone's mind was in a daze, unable to recover for a long time. They never thought that the sword demon would be the one with the lowest cultivation base among these prodigies. Qin Zhen, Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, and the others had already guessed Yiguchin's identity. Now that they heard Yiguchin admit it, they couldn't calm down. He really is. Qin Zhen took a deep breath, glad that he had made the right choice. I was still looking for the sword demon at the Skywind banquet, but I didn't recognize him. Zuoqiu Qing's voice was trembling. She remembered that she had wanted to compete with the sword demon at the Skywind banquet. Now that she thought about it, she had overestimated herself. Young Master Dugu, is this your true confidence? Han Lingxian was completely dazed, as if she had fallen into a dream. She finally understood why Yiguchin always looked aloof in the Outcloud dynasty. Why did he not take Shinmubai, Hua Tengfei, and the others seriously? Why would a lion care about ants at its feet? He's the sword demon. The corners of Purple Smoke Lord and Yellow Dragon Lord's eyes twitched. They knew that if that was really the case, they would no longer have the chance to take revenge. The eyes of the other lords and members of the aristocratic families were also filled with shock as they looked at the peerless figure on the Lightning Prison Mountain. At the same time, the people of the 5 great academies in the sky could not hide their shock. They had been paying attention to Sword Demon for a long time. After all, the Sword Demon had caused a huge commotion in the first stage. Suppressing the top 3 of the sword ranking was unprecedented in the Sword Dynasty. The 5 great academies all wanted to recruit such a peerless genius. However, no one expected that the sword demon was actually Yiguchin. This. Elder Hua Mo's expression was completely dumbstruck, and he was unable to speak for a long time. To think that he had just said that he didn't mind giving Yiguchin to Sacred Cliff College because he didn't care. As a result, Elder Hua Mo's expression was extremely unsightly. Behind him, Hua Tengfei's expression was also extremely stunned. His eyes were filled with bone-deep coldness and hatred. It's really him. Hua Tengfei was so angry that his body was trembling. Ha! Bei Xian Elder looked up to the sky and laughed. Hua Mo actually personally pushed the monstrous sword demon to the Divine Cliff Academy. Sacred Cliff College had never received such a great bargain. On the other side, on the ship of Tianxian College, Mu Xingzu's delicate body couldn't help but tremble. She covered her mouth with both hands, and tears almost uncontrollably rolled down from her moist eyes. She really couldn't hold back her tears. Could it be, it's really? Mu Xingzu's heart trembled. This was because she also knew that Yi Guqin had once used the alias Dugu Wubai. At this moment, Mu Xingzu didn't even dare to go forward to confirm. She was afraid that what she saw was just an illusion. She was afraid that the Dugu Wubai was not the figure in her heart. Xingzhu, what's wrong? Ying Lang was shocked when she saw Mu Xingzu suddenly cry. Jiang Fengmian's eyes were deep. He glanced at Mu Xingzu, then looked at Yi Guqin on the Thunder Prison Mountain. What's going on? Jiang Fengmian was puzzled. What kind of existence was the sword demon, Dugu Wubai, to be able to make Mu Xingzu lose her composure like this? On the Thunder Prison Mountain, all the prodigies fell into a momentary daze. This was because this news was simply too unbelievable. You're the sword demon. Hua Xingjie was extremely shocked. He never imagined that Yi Guqin was the sword demon who had broken Hua Wuxiu's sword technique and caused the 3 heavenly gates to tremble. Yushuang Yan could no longer maintain the indifference on her face. Although she previously thought that Yi Guqin was difficult to deal with, she did not think that he was the sword demon. What was even more unacceptable to her was that the person she despised and looked down on the most, Yi Guqin, was actually the person who had suppressed Hua Wuxiu. Hua Wuxiu was Yushuang Yan's target. This sudden turn of events caused Yushuang Yan to feel dizzy. She could not accept it. He's the sword demon. He hid it really well. Yan Chouke was shocked, and he could not help but laugh bitterly. He had met Yi Guqin before at the Heavenly Wind banquet. Unfortunately, Yi Guqin had not recovered his cultivation level at that time, so Yan Chouke did not pay much attention to it. If that's the case, I'll have to ask the sword demon for advice in the future, Yan Chouke thought to himself. You're really the sword demon? Yin Wufeng's face was tense, and the corners of his mouth could not help but twitch. If he had known that Yi Guqin was the sword demon, he definitely would not have attacked him. So, do you still want to attack me? Yi Guqin stood with his hands behind his back, and his black hair fluttered in the wind. Even Hua Xingjie's face was extremely serious. Yi Guqin was the sword demon, and he had defeated Yin Wufeng previously. Now, even Hua Xingjie did not dare to underestimate Yi Guqin. Big brother Dugu is so powerful. Kong Kong could not help but exclaim when he saw this. Yi Guqin's words silenced all the prodigies. They no longer had their previous arrogance. That's great. I also want to see how powerful the sword demon is, since he can counter Big Brother's sword technique, Hua Xingjie said in a serious tone. In front of so many people, if he were to shrink back, the Hua clan's face and his own face would be completely lost. Moreover, although Yi Guqin had shocked the 3 great heavenly gates, that was only a test. No one knew how strong he really was. Hua Xingjie could only pray in his heart that Yi Guqin's strength would not be too heaven-defying. Heavenly Sword of Supremacy. Hua Xingjie did not hesitate at all and attacked directly. Holding the long sword in his hand, the sword edge swallowed and spat out a sharp sword light, and it slashed towards Yi Guqin. Hua Xingjie has attacked. Exclamations rose and fell one after another. If Yi Guqin, the dark horse, was excluded. The recognized first place in this 5 academy selection was undoubtedly Hua Xingjie, who was ranked 19th on the sword list. However, Yi Guqin had caused too much of a commotion in the first round. Even if it was just a test, he could suppress the top 3 on the sword list, which shocked everyone. All eyes were fixed on him. Everyone's eyes were fixed. They all wanted to know who this sword demon was, who was able to trigger 3 brilliant lights. What was his true strength? Chapter 904. Yi Guqin's eyes were indifferent when he saw Hua Xingjie attack. Even if Hua Xingjie had a cultivation at the peak of the 9th phase. As long as he didn't step into the divine dwelling stage, he wouldn't be a threat to him. Given Yiguchen's current strength, he could even wrestle with someone of the divine dwelling stage, let alone someone at the peak of the 9th phase. Hua Xingjie's sword was like a heavenly sword as it slashed down at Yiguchen. The wave of energy was extremely strong, and it was even fiercer and more intimidating than Yin Wufeng's. Seeing Hua Xingjie's imposing manner, all the spectators nodded inwardly. He was indeed worthy of being the strongest heaven pride in the Hua family, with the exception of Hua Wuxiu. One could tell how strong or weak he was as soon as he attacked. In the face of Hua Xingjie's sword attack, Yiguchen took a step forward and held his sword horizontally to block. Ear-piercing clangs erupted as metal clashed, shaking the surroundings. Violent ripples of sword energy swept through the surroundings, shaking off the lightning tide. He blocked it. The gazes of countless spectators froze. Yiguchen had easily blocked Hua Xingjie's sword attack. This. Hua Xingjie's eyes were also filled with extreme surprise. He knew that Yiguchen's strength was extraordinary, but he didn't expect his sword attack to be so easily blocked. Yiguchen's eyes were as sharp as a sword. Blood-colored sword qi gushed out, transforming into countless red spider lilies that pierced towards Hua Xingjie. God-slaying sword art, Permitha. When she saw the sword appear, Mu Xingzhu's delicate body trembled violently. Her eyes, which were already filled with tears, were filled with countless memories. She couldn't help but cry tears of joy. Xingzhu, what's wrong? Yinglang was even more surprised when she saw this. It was the first time she had seen Mu Xingzhu lose her composure. No, it's nothing. Xingzhu is just too happy. Mu Xingzhu choked up. Although she really wanted to reunite with Yiguchen, the selection was not over yet. Mu Xingzhu could only suppress the longing in her heart and follow the figure closely. Rumble. On the Thunder Prison Mountain, the battle continued. Their swords clashed, and the sound of collisions rang out incessantly. Why? He's only at stage 3, how can he be so strong? Hua Xingjie was puzzled. Naturally, he did not know that the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra that Yiguchen cultivated was such a heaven-defying technique. Illusory sword technique. Hua Xingjie changed the direction of his sword and once again displayed one of the Hua family's emperor-level sword arts. His sword shadows alternated between real and illusory, transforming into a sword tide that swept toward Yiguchen. Yiguchen opened his palms and curled his fingers, turning the long sword in his hand. His left hand displayed the god-slaying sword technique, and countless blood-red sword rays surged out. His right hand displayed the immortal slaying sword technique, and the scene of a group of immortals falling appeared. Then, Yiguchen put his palms together, and the long sword burst out a trembling sound that shook the sky. God-slaying sword. Immortal slaying sword. Immortal God's cry. After breaking through to the heaven and earth spiritual bridge, Yiguchen displayed the immortal God's cry again, and its power was obviously stronger than before. Moreover, the scene of immortal God's cry that appeared was more complicated, causing one's heart to tremble. With a sweep of the sword, heaven and earth mourned. The sword tide formed by Hua Xingjie was directly split into 2. The sword rays did not diminish, and roared toward Hua Xingjie. Komyo Kendo, Radiant Sword Realm. Seeing this, Hua Xingjie's expression changed abruptly. He no longer dared to hold back, and displayed his sword Dao. Although Komyo Kendo was an ordinary sword Dao, it was the peak of ordinary sword Dao, and its power was not inferior to that of an ordinary sword Dao. Moreover, if Komyo Kendo was combined with the dark sword Dao, its power could reach the peak of sword Dao, close to the creation sword Dao. Of course, Hua Xingjie was not like Hua Wuxiu, who had the sacred light and darkness physique and had 2 sword Daos. Even so, a single Komyo Kendo was not weak. At this moment, Hua Xingjie displayed Komyo Kendo's sword domain, the Radiant Sword Realm. Endless light spread out from his body, as if forming a radiant boundary. The immortal God's cry slashed directly into the Radiant Sword Realm, bursting forth with a violent collision. Within the Radiant Sword Realm, golden light swords appeared one after another, counteracting the power of the immortal God's cry. However, even so, Hua Xingjie kept retreating, his chest trembling violently, and a bloody taste welled up in his throat. He was injured by the immortal god's cry. How could it be? Hua Xingjie gritted his teeth, and a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. He had been looking for the sword demon previously, and had even said that if he appeared, he would immediately suppress and subdue him. However, now, facing Ye Guqin, Hua Xingjie felt so powerless. On the Tensei College ship, Hua Mo's expression froze when he saw this. Not only did Ye Guqin break Hua Wuxiu's sword move, but he also suppressed Hua Wuxiu in the Heavenly Gate, and now Hua Xingjie was injured. Wasn't Ye Guqin stepping on the pride of the Hua family to rise to the top? Thinking of this, Hua Mo's expression became gloomy. If this Dugu Wubai knows what's good for him, then it's fine, but if he doesn't. Hua Mo muttered to himself. I don't believe it. I'm the genius of the Hua family, second only to my eldest brother Hua Wuxiu. I can't possibly lose. Hua Xingjie's aura burst out again, rising steadily. Radiant Sword Realm, 10,000 light illumination. In the Golden Radiant Sword Realm, 10,000 golden light swords instantly condensed, and each light sword was enough to easily penetrate an ordinary heaven and earth spirit bridge expert. At this moment, the 10,000 swords were like billions of rays of light, spreading toward Ye Guqin in an overwhelming manner. Ye Guqin's eyes became serious. At this moment, his best countermeasure was the sword sect's secret technique, the 108,000 sword souls. However, this move was too conspicuous, and would easily cause people to suspect Ye Guqin's identity. Fortunately, other than this, Ye Guqin still had a countermeasure. Ye Guqin's sword momentum changed, and vigorous genuine qi burst out. A sword light as bright as the sun rose from the sword blade. Could that be? Outside the Thunder Prison Mountain, Han Lingxian covered her mouth with her jade-like hand, and her beautiful eyes couldn't help but widen. The move that Ye Guqin was about to use shocked her. 3 ultimate holy swords, absolute sword of Qianyang. Ye Guqin pointed his sword to the sky, and the sword light rose like the sun, releasing endless sword light waves. This move was the third move of the 3 ultimate holy swords, absolute sword of Qianyang. Absolute Sword of Qianyang, Absolute Sword of Kuanyu, and Absolute Sword of Broken Stars. They represented the sun, moon, and stars respectively. This was the essence of the 3 ultimate holy swords. Absolute Sword of Qianyang was undoubtedly the most overbearing move among the 3 moves. The sword light was vast and blazing like the sun, and it was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. Rumble. Ye Guqin swept out with his sword, and it was as if the sun had exploded. It set off a blazing wave, and it collided with Hua Xingjie's realm move. Boom! Intense light filled that part of the world. Everyone squinted their eyes to watch. In the endless light, the sound of someone vomiting blood could be heard. A figure flew out like a kite with a broken string, and he vomited a large mouthful of blood. His chest was charred black, and there were sword wounds all around him. The person who was sent flying was Hua Xingjie. Hua Xingjie has lost. At this moment, everyone around the Thunder Prison Mountain was silent. Hua Xingjie, who was ranked 19th on the sword leaderboard, had lost to the sword demon. Chapter 905. Looking at Hua Xingjie, who had been beaten back by Ye Guqin and was coughing up blood from the corner of his mouth. Everyone in the surrounding area fell silent. Hua Xingjie, ranked 19th on the sword ranking, was definitely not a nobody. It could be said that Hua Xingjie was almost qualified to challenge for the position of Sword Sun. However, such a heaven's pride, who was second only to Hua Wuxiu in the Hua family, had been defeated by Ye Guqin, who had appeared out of nowhere. This caused many people's hearts to beat wildly. It seems that another dark horse has appeared in the Sword Dynasty. This time, the competition for the position of Sword Sun will be interesting. Many people thought to themselves. The Sword Dynasty had gathered heaven's prides from all over the world, and there had been no lack of dark horses in the past. However, there were only a few heaven's prides like Ye Guqin, who had appeared out of nowhere and stunned everyone. Last time, the sword monk Xuanlian had appeared and defeated many heaven's prides in the top 10 of the sword ranking, which led to his 4th place. Could this sword demon Dugu Wubai be another sword monk Xuanlian? Some people's eyes were filled with anticipation. No, I don't believe it. Dugu Wubai, how could I lose to you? Hua Xingjie's eyes were bloodshot. This time, the 5 Academies selection should have been his time to shine. However, all of his glory had been taken away by Yi Guqin. 6 Sun's Sword Technique. Hua Xingjie's aura of the 9th level of the Spirit Bridge of Heaven and Earth burst out completely. 6 vigorous and blazing golden sword lights soared up from the radiant sword realm, turning into 6 giant swords. Supported by the Emperor-level sword technique, Komyo Kendo's power fluctuated in all directions, causing the wind and clouds to change color. Hua Xingjie is really going all out in this attack. All the lords, people from the aristocratic families, and even those from the 5 academies were watching intently. Han Lingshuan's heart tightened. Although she had absolute confidence in Yi Guqin, the fluctuations of Hua Xingjie's sword were too intense. I don't believe that this move can't kill you. Yu Shuangyan's expression was cold. The enmity between her and Yi Guqin was already difficult to resolve, so at this moment, she naturally hoped that Yi Guqin would be defeated or even killed by Hua Xingjie. Yin Wufeng and the others were also watching. Sword Demon, show me what you're really capable of. Yan Chouke's eyes were filled with anticipation. At this moment, everyone had different thoughts. On the other hand, Yi Guqin's eyes were as calm as a lake. The thick color of blood swallowed his eyes. The blood-red sword qi wrapped around the sword, and the sword edge vibrated and vibrated in the void. Azura tribulation, life fall. Yi Guqin swung his sword, and a tragic sword intent of millions of corpses and rivers of blood spread out. In an instant, the sky and earth seemed to be dyed with a layer of blood. The Azura sword principle combined with the 10,000 god tribulation, life fall. The power of this move shocked everyone in the Sword Dynasty. What a terrifying murderous aura. The attack power of this move is shocking. What kind of heaven-defying sword technique is this? I have never seen it before. The crowd was in an uproar. After all, the Sword Dynasty and the Saint Origin Dynasty were far apart. Many people had only heard of Yi Guqin's name and deeds. Some of his moves were not known to everyone. Therefore, Yi Guqin did not have too many scruples. Other than some of the more eye-catching sword sect's secret techniques, Yi Guqin could use the rest of his moves without worry. Boom! Yi Guqin's life fall collided with Hua Xingjie's 6 giant golden light swords. Rumble! One after another, the light swords were shattered by Yi Guqin's sword. The sword light that poured out overturned the ground and shattered countless rocks. Both sides were shaken and were forced to retreat. Hua Xingjie vomited blood again. A terrifying sword wound appeared on his chest, and blood dripped down. Obviously, he was severely injured. Yi Guqin was forced to retreat as well. He groaned in his chest, and a trail of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Hua Xingjie's strength was not weak. The 6 yang sword art had also injured Yi Guqin, causing some sword wounds to appear on his body. However, compared to Hua Xingjie, he was much better. He still lost. Looking at the battle that had been settled, many people were shocked. The people from the 5 great academies in the sky were also in an uproar. This sword demon is interesting. Jiang Fengmian played with a red maple leaf in his hand with a deep look in his eyes. He then looked at Mu Xingzu and realized that Mu Xingzu's gaze had never left Yi Guqin. This made Jiang Fengmian frown slightly. On the lightning prison mountain, Hua Xingjie kept coughing up blood. The surrounding lightning waves surged and surrounded him again, making his situation even worse. I lost. I can't believe I lost. Hua Xingjie was still in disbelief. This was like a nightmare to him. Everyone, let's attack together. If this person is here, will we still have a chance to perform? Yu Shuangyan shouted coldly. She wanted to gather everyone's strength to deal with Yi Guqin. That's right. Everyone, let's attack together. If we don't get rid of this person, we are destined to be suppressed, Yin Wufeng said. Many prodigies turned to look at Yi Guchen with cold eyes. Yi Guchen's performance had seriously threatened them. Yi Guchen was also the one who had the highest chance of reaching the top. This has nothing to do with us, Gue Jianqiu said. He was an itinerant cultivator, so he naturally wouldn't listen to Yin Wufeng and the others. Don't you think it's shameful to gang up on him? Yan Chou-ku snorted. The winner is king, and the loser is a bandit, Hua Xingjie said. The true qi in his body surged as he used a secret technique to temporarily suppress his injuries. No matter what, they couldn't let Yi Guchen reach the top. Hua Xingjie, Yin Wufeng, and Yushuang Yan led the way. Among the remaining prodigies, there were also a dozen or so prodigies from the aristocratic families who responded and gradually surrounded Yi Guchen. Shengguan Yan was also a prodigy from an aristocratic family, but she didn't get involved. She vaguely felt that the strength that Yi Guchen had shown was not all that he had. Do you think you can stop me? Yi Guchen's lips curled into a cold smile as he watched the prodigies gradually surround him. Do you need help? Yan Chou-ku asked. Thank you, but there's no need for that. They're just a mob. Yi Guchen smiled casually. This. Everyone's faces froze when they heard Yi Guchen's words. The prodigies ranked 19th, 23rd, and 27th on the sword leaderboard, as well as a dozen or so other powerful prodigies from the aristocratic families. Yi Guchen actually regarded this force as a motley crew when they were put together. Everyone's expressions were very interesting. Hua Xingjie and the others' expressions were extremely dark. Attack! There was no hesitation. The conflict between Yi Guchen and Hua Xingjie and the other prodigies was irreconcilable. They had to fight to determine the victor. Heaven Fiend 9 Swords. Six Suns Sword Technique. Heaven Ice River Sword. Hua Xingjie, Yushuang Yan, and the others all unleashed their most powerful sword techniques. The other prodigies also unleashed their techniques. A large number of sword techniques formed a destructive torrent that rushed toward Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen and his sword were like rainbows. His sword qi and sword intent were earth-shattering. He was fighting a group of prodigies alone. Dugu's 9 Swords, Sword-Breaking Technique. Yi Guchen's long sword slashed out, breaking all techniques with a single slash. A ray of sword light illuminated the sky, tearing apart the torrent of sword energy and breaking all the sword techniques. However, just as the shock in everyone's eyes had yet to fully emerge, the sword in Yi Guchen's hand was unable to withstand the violent collision. Under countless gazes, it exploded into metal shards with a loud crack. The endless destructive sword techniques drowned Yi Guchen's figure. Chapter 906. This, the sudden turn of events was beyond everyone's expectations. Yi Guchen's sword was broken. A sword was extremely important to a sword cultivator. However, Yi Guchen's sword was purchased at the last minute, so it wasn't a divine weapon. In such a powerful collision, it was unable to withstand the shockwaves and directly shattered, turning into countless metal fragments. Young Master Dugu, Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, and the others turned pale with fright. Han Lingxian, in particular, was pale as a sheet, her body trembling. On the other hand, the Purple Smoke Lord and the Yellow Dragon Lord were pleasantly surprised. Yi Guchen's death was a pleasant surprise for them. In the sky, many exclamations came from the ships of the 5 academies. Yi Guchen's death was a great loss for the Sword Dynasty. Sword Demon's strength isn't bad, but unfortunately, he's too arrogant. Hua Mo shook his head. You still have the nerve to say that. It's all because Hua Xingjie and the others were shameless and attacked him together. You're saying that Sword Demon is arrogant and arrogant. Bei Xian Elder snorted. He should be dead now, right? Behind Hua Mo, Hua Tengfei stared fixedly at the center of the collision. His eyes were filled with delight. He and Yi Guchen had a grudge that was difficult to resolve. Mu Xingzhu's eyes were filled with worry. However, she still had confidence in Yi Guchen. In her heart, Yiguchen was a godlike existence. He had survived the desperate situation of the Tianhuang Plain. What else was impossible? On the lightning prison mountain, the wind and clouds changed. Sword light illuminated the sky and thunder rumbled. Yiguchen's figure was completely submerged in the destructive sword light. Is he dead? Hua Xingjie, Yin Wufeng, Yushuang Yan, and the other sky prides were panting as they focused their gazes. More than 10 sky prides attacked together. Even the top 10 sky prides on the sword ranking couldn't ignore them. Although Yiguchen had shown great strength before, it was still a little difficult to say that he was in the top 10 of the sword ranking. Just as everyone was holding their breaths, the destructive and terrifying sword tide finally dispersed. Boundless golden light suddenly surged out from within the dust and smoke, and everyone could faintly see a lofty figure standing there like an indestructible god. All the spectators' hearts tightened, and they almost stopped breathing. As the dust dissipated, the figure finally appeared. Yiguchen's body suddenly grew to 9 feet. 2 star marks flashed between his eyebrows, and endless ancient divine light patterns flowed all over his body. Yiguchen transformed into a 2-star ancient god. Not only that, but a golden armor formed by ancient god power appeared on the surface of his body. The surface of the armor was branded with countless totem patterns. It gave off a sense of desolation, vastness, and firmness. The golden armor wasn't a real weapon. It was a defensive technique of the ancient god clan, the immovable ancient god king armor. The Heaven Barbarian King had also used this technique during the battle with the chaotic world demonic ape. Although the immovable ancient god king armor wasn't a real defensive tool, its defensive power was greater than that of a supreme-grade defensive armor with mystical patterns. Yiguchen estimated that with his abilities as a 2-star ancient god, the defensive power of the ancient god immovable king armor was equivalent to that of a quasi-apocalypse divine weapon. Yiguchen's powerful physical body, coupled with the ancient god immovable king armor, could be said to be able to withstand a blow from a divine dwelling realm expert. Although Hua Xingjie and the others' joint attack was powerful, it was undoubtedly wishful thinking to kill Yiguchen in his ancient god form. This is impossible. Hua Xingjie and the others widened their eyes. They couldn't hide the shock in their hearts. Yiguchen had only suffered some injuries, which were far from fatal. How could this be? What kind of technique did Dugu Wubai use? Countless gasps could be heard from all directions. The 100 clans of the various heavens were ancient secrets that few people knew about. The people from the 5 academies in the sky were also in a daze. Yiguchen's strength was beyond their expectations. He had withstood the attacks of a group of supreme talents by himself. No, I don't believe it. Continue to attack. Hua Xingjie's voice trembled slightly. At the beginning of the 5 academies selection, he was so high-spirited that he even wanted to suppress the sword demon. But now, there was a trace of panic in his eyes. Yin Wufeng's expression changed completely. As for Yushuang Yan, all of her coldness and arrogance had disappeared. This famous iceberg beauty was now trembling like a quail, her jade-like face incomparably pale. You don't even know who you're facing. Yiguchen's voice was indifferent. He was like a god of war, his golden light shining in all directions. His words silenced all the heaven prides. While Hua Xingjie and the others were waiting, Yiguchen's figure suddenly turned into a beam of golden light and sped towards the peak. Is he going to attack the peak? Yiguchen's action shocked everyone. The peak of the lightning prison mountain was not a place that anyone could reach. But Yiguchen dared to do so. He stretched out his hand, and his ancient god power surged. It transformed into a golden seal that ruthlessly bombarded the lightning curtain. Roar! At the same time, the 4 lightning spirits of the divine dwelling stage also reacted and rushed towards Yiguchen. Oh, you're courting death. Hua Xingjie and the others breathed a sigh of relief. They thought Yiguchen would take revenge on them, but they didn't expect Yiguchen to court death. Who could stop 4 lightning spirits of the divine dwelling stage? Dugu Wubai is too careless. Bei Xian Elder's face was filled with worry. He had long regarded Yiguchen as a student of Sacred Cliff College. Yiguchen's face was calm in the face of the four lightning spirits. To others, Yiguchen's action was crazy, ignorant, and overestimating himself. But only Yiguchen knew that he had the confidence to do so. Break! Yiguchen let out an angry roar, and the ancient divine royal seal directly broke through the lightning screen. Yiguchen flashed away. In an instant, endless lightning frantically rushed towards Yiguchen. The Thunder Prison mountain peak attracted lightning from the sky all year round, so the power of the lightning could be imagined. The lightning seemed to have turned into an electric net, wrapping around Yiguchen. Lightning also burst out from the surface of the golden ancient god immovable king armor. If it were Hua Shengjie and the others, they wouldn't be able to withstand such terrifying lightning. Yiguchen was confident not only because of the ancient god body and the immovable king armor. It was also because he had the devouring power. Yiguchen activated the devouring power in his body, turning it into a devouring black hole, absorbing and refining the lightning power that poured into his body. The overbearing devouring power wasn't the slightest bit weaker than the lightning power. Not only that, the Thunder Tribulation sword that had been silent in the depths of Yiguchen's body began to tremble again. The trembling of the Thunder Tribulation sword even caused the God Devourer demon sword to tremble slightly, as if it felt threatened. More lightning was sucked into the Thunder Tribulation sword. Yiguchen's pressure was greatly reduced. His figure flashed, and he directly rushed to the peak. A sword, inserted diagonally into the peak, attracted the lightning of heaven and earth, and its power was earth-shattering. What is Duga Wubai trying to do? Is he trying to pull out the 9-dragon thunder prison? Seeing Yiguchen's action, everyone's face froze. A horrified expression appeared on everyone's face. Chapter 907. The 9-dragon thunder prison was once a divine weapon, so its power was self-evident. Even if it was damaged and had fallen to a quasi-divine weapon, it was still very powerful. But the 9-dragon thunder prison was not something that anyone could pull out. Even Hua Wuxiu, who was ranked 3rd on the sword ranking, had tried to pull out the 9-dragon thunder prison but failed. Because this sword not only controlled lightning, but also merged with the soul of the 9-headed dragon, making it extremely domineering. In the past 5 Academy selection, there was no lack of people who wanted to obtain the 9-dragon thunder prison, but without exception, many people could not even break the light curtain. At this moment, everyone was shocked to see Yiguchen break the lightning light curtain and rush towards the 9-dragon thunder prison. Could Yiguchen succeed? Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, Qin Zhen, Purple Smoke Lord, Yellow Dragon Lord and others. There were also Hua Shengjie, Yin Wufeng, Yushuang Yan and others. Including Hua Mo, Hua Tengfei, Bei Xian Elder, Kong Kong, Mu Xingzu and Yinglang. Everyone held their breaths at this moment, staring intently at the peak of the Thunder Prison Mountain. Would Yiguchen create a miracle today? Looking at the sword submerged in endless heavenly lightning, Yiguchen's eyes were full of arrogance and ambition. So what if it was a quasi-divine weapon? Yiguchen had a real immemorial demon sword in his body. The one who felt lucky now was not Yiguchen, but the 9-dragon thunder prison. It was the 9-dragon thunder prison's honor to be used by Yiguchen. Roar! Behind him, the 4 divine dwelling stage lightning spirits chased after him. Yiguchen's only choice now was to pull out the 9-dragon thunder prison. Only then could he solve the crisis of the 4 lightning spirits. He used so near, yet worlds apart to get close to the 9-dragon thunder prison. Only then did he see the sword clearly. The 9-dragon thunder prison was 5 feet long, and the sword hilt was like a 9-headed dragon coiling around. Because the sword attracted lightning all year round, it was covered with countless natural lightning patterns. There were even 9 flood dragon patterns vaguely visible, emitting a dragon's might. Flood dragon demonic souls were rare enough. The true dragon was almost extinct. Just as Yiguchen approached the 9-dragon thunder prison, the 9-dragon lightning prison sword suddenly trembled. Soon after, everyone heard 9 ear-piercing roars in succession. 9 Jiao dragon demonic souls appeared. Each of the Jiao dragons was covered in blazing lightning. They looked like 9 thick lightning bolts. Roar! After 9 consecutive roars, the soul of the 9-headed thunder flood dragon charged towards Yiguchen. Yiguchen had a strange look in his eyes. No wonder it was once a divine weapon of heavenly tribulation. The 9-dragon thunder prison was actually able to manifest the souls of the 9-headed thunder flood dragons to attack the enemy. However, Yiguchen showed no fear and continued to charge forward. Boom! There was a violent collision. Yiguchen activated the ancient god body with all his might, and the golden seal suppressed it. Not only that, the thunder calamity sword and devouring power in his body were also refining the lightning power. Yiguchen took this opportunity to break through the defense of the 9-headed thunder flood dragon's soul and landed on the sword itself. Yiguchen held the hilt of the 9-dragon thunder prison sword with one hand. At this moment, Yiguchen was the center of attention. Everyone held their breaths as they waited. It's impossible for him to pull it out. Even Big Brother can't do it. Hua Xingjie's forehead was covered in sweat unknowingly. The 9-dragon thunder prison is extremely difficult to subdue. Moreover, there will be a backlash. Yu Shuangyan prayed in her heart. Countless gazes were focused on Yiguchen. Yiguchen, on the other hand, was completely focused. He placed his hand on the sword hilt. An even more terrifying lightning power, accompanied by sword intent, rushed into his body. The power of lightning was 7-colored. It was extremely mysterious and powerful. Lightning sword principle and unusual lightning. Yiguchen's eyes narrowed. In the 9-dragon thunder prison, there was indeed the comprehension of the lightning sword principle that the lightning sword reverend had left behind. Not only that, but there was also a type of unusual lightning in the sword. 7-colored dark lightning. It is said to be a lightning formed by 7 different types of unusual lightning. It even has the power to punish on behalf of the heavens. Yiguchen was shocked and revealed a joyful expression. 7-colored dark lightning was one of the most powerful types of lightning among the unusual lightning. Even Yiguchen's purple void lightning, which was a combination of 2 types of unusual lightning, was not comparable to the 7-colored dark lightning. Yiguchen's body was instantly submerged in the 7-colored dark lightning. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple. 7-colored thunderbolts wrapped around Yiguchen's body, bringing with them a powerful destructive force. 7-colored dark lightning. Can Dugu Wubai withstand it? Everyone's eyes were fixed on it. Han Lingxuan's palms were sweating. She was very nervous for Yiguchen. Yiguchen's body was being baptized by the destructive power of the lightning. Even the immovable ancient god king armor on Yiguchen's body showed signs of cracking. From this, one could see how powerful the backlash of the 9-dragon thunder prison was. But no one could imagine how many trump cards Yiguchen had. The thunder tribulation sword in his body was constantly absorbing the power of the 7-colored dark lightning and heavenly lightning. Vaguely, there seemed to be words emerging on the sword. Could it be the 4th move of the 1000-god tribulation? Yiguchen was shocked. This was a pleasant surprise. But to fully manifest the 4th move, it was obvious that the current power was not enough. But the most important thing was that Yiguchen's true qi, after being tempered by endless lightning, was about to reach the 4th stage. Roar! At this time, the 4 divine dwelling stage thunder spirits were less than 3 feet away from Yiguchen. In the next second, Yiguchen's body would be torn apart by the 4 thunder spirits. Ha! Dugu Wubai, you can't defy the heavens. Hua Xingjie's eyes were bloodshot, as if he couldn't wait to see Yiguchen fall. It's over. Yu Shuangyan's beautiful eyes also showed a trace of relief. This result couldn't be better for them. Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, and the others almost stopped breathing. In the sky, Sacred Cliff College's Bei Xian elder's face was solemn. He really wanted to help. But during the 5 academies selection, no one was allowed to intervene, so he was powerless. Just when everyone thought that the peerless genius of the Sword Dynasty was going to die at the hands of the Thunder Spirit, a voice suddenly sounded. Yiguchen himself didn't have the slightest bit of fear. He had experienced countless life and death situations, so this little crisis was nothing. Sword rise. Yiguchen's black hair fluttered in the wind as he roared to the sky. The roar shook the heavens for 30,000 miles. If he couldn't even subdue a sword, how could Yiguchen be called a sword master? How could he be called a sword demon? Boom! True chi erupted from Yiguchen's body, and the ancient god power surged. At the same time, the Thunder Tribulation sword absorbed the power of thousands of thunderbolts. The God Devourer sword trembled slightly, releasing a trace of the ancient demon sword's power, which was transmitted to the Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison. The Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison sword trembled in an instant, as if a dragon was facing an ancient true dragon. Not to mention that the Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison was in a damaged state. Even if it was at its peak, it couldn't resist the pressure of the God Devourer sword. The ancient famed sword came out, and all other swords submitted. Finally, endless thunder and lightning exploded from the Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison sword. Under the gaze of thousands of people, Yiguchen held the sword hilt and suddenly exerted force. The sword was pulled out inch by inch. 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, then, a sword cry that shook everyone's eardrums resounded between heaven and earth. Boom! The Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison was completely pulled out by Yiguchen. The sword demon pulled out the sword, and the lightning tribulation shook the world and illuminated the sky. Chapter 908. Between heaven and earth, all sounds seemed to have disappeared. Only the sound of the Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison resounded throughout the 9 heavens and 10 earths. The Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison, which had been at the peak of the Thunder Prison Mountain for a long time, was completely pulled out by Yiguchen at this moment. Yiguchen's long hair danced in the wind, his temperament was wild and disdainful. Even in his eyes, there was thunder and lightning shooting out. When the sword demon pulled out his sword, the lightning tribulation shook the world and illuminated the sky. After the 3 lights illuminated the world, Yiguchen pulled out the Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison again, shocking everyone present. How is this possible? Hua Xingjie knelt on the ground with a thud, his eyes were lifeless. As the pride of the Hua family, other than Hua Wuxiu, he did not put any other pride in his eyes. He was proud. But this pride was shattered in front of Yiguchen. So what if he was from the Hua family? So what if he was ranked 19th on the sword leaderboard? In front of Yiguchen, he was still vulnerable. Yu Shuangyan's mind was also buzzing and trembling. The blood on her face faded, leaving behind a sheet of paper. Only now did she realize that the arrogance and coldness she had towards Yiguchen before was laughable. Outside the Thunder Prison Mountain, many lords and aristocratic families who were watching the battle were completely speechless. It seems that I still underestimated young Master Dugu. Han Lingxian smiled bitterly. She remembered that when she first participated in the selection, Yiguchen once said that he wanted to win the Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison. Han Lingxian thought it was a joke. But now, the joke was real. For some reason, Han Lingxian was not too happy. The more outstanding Yiguchen's performance was, the greater the gap between him and Han Lingxian. In the end, Han Lingxian could only silently look at Yiguchen's back. In the sky, Bei Xian Elder's face was flushed with excitement. Yiguchen's performance was really beyond his expectations. Hua Emo was speechless. His face froze. Hua Tengfei's eyes were filled with unprecedented shock. Who would have thought that the young man who had pulled out the Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison with a shocking sword might was the Dugu Wubai who had been treated as a cripple in the Chuyun dynasty without any qi cultivation? Mu Xingzu was not surprised by Yiguchen's performance. She shed tears of joy. Jiang Fengnian and Yinglang were shocked. Different people looked at Yiguchen with different gazes, but there was no doubt that they were all shocked. At this moment, Yiguchen pulled out the Nine-Dragon Thunder Prison. 7-colored profound lightning illuminated the sky. He was like the master of the sword, the king of thunder. The moment the 9-dragon thunder prison was pulled out, the 4 divine dwelling stage lightning spirits exploded into balls of lightning and poured into Yiguchen and the 9-dragon thunder prison. To a certain extent, these lightning spirits were the guardians of the 9-dragon thunder prison. Since Yiguchen had pulled out the 9-dragon thunder prison, there was no need for them to exist. Boom! 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 Explosions sounded one after another on the thunder prison mountain. Lightning spirits exploded one after another, turning into bolts of lightning and gathering at the top of the mountain. Half of the lightning was absorbed by the 9-dragon thunder prison. The other half poured into Yiguchen's body. Yiguchen's aura soared again. Under the envious gazes of many heaven prides, Yiguchen directly broke through to the 4th level of the heaven and earth spirit bridge. Boom! In Yiguchen's Qi, another section of the heaven and earth spirit bridge was formed. Yiguchen had officially stepped into the 4th level, and his aura was even more powerful. He looked disdainfully at the pale-faced Hua Xingjie and the others, and the corners of his lips curved in an icy smile. Seeing Yiguchen's sneer, Hua Xingjie and the others felt as if their hearts had fallen into an ice cave. You have to pay the price for doing something wrong, right? Yiguchen's tone was cold. Although it was impossible for him to kill Hua Xingjie and the others in front of everyone. But it was still possible to teach them an unforgettable lesson. Dugu Wubai, how dare you? Hua Xingjie shouted, but he could not hide the trembling and panic in his voice. Everyone knew that Hua Xingjie was tough on the outside but weak on the inside. Yiguchen did not hesitate and directly attacked. He also wanted to experience the power of a quasi-tribulation divine weapon. Previously in the Tianhuang Plains, Yiguchen had seen Gu Xiaoyang's quasi-tribulation divine weapon, the 7-star illusionary god, and its power had left a deep impression on him. Now that Yiguchen also had a quasi-tribulation divine weapon, he naturally needed someone to practice on. Yiguchen held the 9-dragon thunder prison in his hand and swept out with his sword. He did not use any moves, but the sword itself surged with a large amount of lightning. The moment I pulled out the 9-dragon thunder prison, I completely controlled this sword, but I haven't refined the 7-colored profound thunder in it, Yiguchen thought to himself. Although he controlled the 9-dragon thunder prison, he had not comprehended the 7-colored profound thunder and the thunder sword will in it. But now was not the time to refine it. Whoosh! The sword radiance spread out along with streaks of lightning. The sound of thunder rumbled and shook the sky. Who could resist the wind and thunder of the sword? Hua Xingjie and the others blocked with their swords, but they did not have the slightest strength to resist. They were beaten back and spat out red blood. Even the supreme-grade divine weapons in their hands could not withstand the ferocious power of the 9-dragon thunder prison. Yiguchen suppressed Hua Xingjie and more than 10 other geniuses of the aristocratic families. In the sky, Hua Mo's face was extremely gloomy. Hua Xingjie had not only embarrassed himself, but also the Hua family. Just as Hua Mo was about to speak, Bei Xian Elder said with a fake smile, Elder Hua Mo, you said that no one can interfere with the 5 academies selection. Hearing this, Elder Hua Mo's face froze and his eyes darkened. This time, the Hua family had lost all face. Boom! Yiguchen attacked with his sword. Every sword radiance was accompanied by blazing lightning. A quasi-tribulation divine weapon is indeed powerful. I haven't used any moves, but my ordinary attacks are comparable to the power of a king-level sword art. Yiguchen was also slightly shocked. Even a quasi-tribulation divine weapon had such power. What about a real tribulation divine weapon? How powerful would the demon sword devour gods be? At this moment, Yiguchen suddenly looked forward to the day when he could completely control the demon sword devour gods. Puff! Yiguchen swung his sword and a series of lightning radiance spread out, directly injuring Hua Xingjie. His body was charred black and even emitted a burnt smell. Yu Shuangyan, Yin Wufeng, and the others were also very miserable. The rest of the geniuses, such as Gui Jianqiu and Yan Choke, were not affected. They looked at the miserable Hua Xingjie and the others, and the corners of their eyes twitched slightly. If they were in Yiguchen's position, they would not be able to resist his attack. Last move, Yiguchen pointed his sword to the sky and poured all the genuine chi of the fourth stage spiritual bridge of heaven and earth into the nine-dragon thunder prison. Whoosh! A huge lightning bolt streaked across the sky. Yiguchen's sword resonated with the heavenly thunder. This was the unique property of the nine-dragon thunder prison. Thunder Dragon Purgatory. Yiguchen swung his sword, accompanied by the roar of a dragon. A thunder dragon emerged from the nine-dragon thunder prison, bursting with thunderbolts. Endless lightning radiance seemed to form a lightning cage, enveloping Hua Xingjie and the others. This was one of the abilities of the nine-dragon thunder prison. It formed a nine-headed lightning dragon and formed a purgatory to attack and imprison the enemy. This was how the name of the nine-dragon thunder prison came about. Yiguchen had only just begun to control the nine-dragon thunder prison, and could not fully manifest the nine-dragon purgatory. But even if there was only one lightning dragon, its power was extremely strong. The lightning dragon circled and turned into a purgatory, imprisoning Hua Xingjie, Yushuang Yan, Yin Wufeng, and the others, and bombarding them with lightning. They spat out blood, and their bodies were charred black. No one could resist the power of the nine-dragon thunder prison. After a round of bombardment, Yiguchen withdrew the lightning dragon's soul. Looking around, only a charred ground was left. There were also charred bodies lying on the ground, on the verge of death. Gulp! The whole place was dead silent, only the sound of gulping could be heard from time to time. Chapter 909. At this moment, Hua Xingjie, Yin Wufeng, Yushuang Yan, and the others were really miserable. Their bodies were burnt black, and it was almost impossible to tell who was who. Their auras were extremely weak, and they were on the verge of death. Although Yiguchen could not directly kill them, he did not hold back and beat these people until they were on the verge of death. Even if they did not die, they were almost half dead. Brother Dugu is mighty. Kong Kong shouted, looking like an onlooker. The eyes of the rogue prodigies twitched. Hua Xingjie and the others were probably the most miserable existence in the 5 academies selection. Many people's eyes turned to Yiguchen again, with shock and fear in their eyes. A prodigy not only had extraordinary talent and strength, but also had such a resolute and cold temperament. It was impossible for Yiguchen not to be famous in the Sword Dynasty. This. In the sky, the corner of Elder Hua Mo's eyes twitched slightly. However, he could not make things difficult for Yiguchen. After all, Yiguchen did not kill them. As Yiguchen pulled out the nine-dragon thunder prison, the thunder tide on the entire thunder prison mountain also disappeared. This famous trial place had completely lost its effect. The shock in many people's hearts had not disappeared. After all, the nine-dragon thunder prison was something that even Hua Wuxiu could not pull out. Was Yiguchen stronger than Hua Wuxiu? Many people's eyes were filled with surprise. If that was the case, it was a big blow to the reputation of the Hua family. Some people looked up at the Tensei College's ship in the sky. Elder Hua Mo was expressionless, and said loudly, "The 5 Academy selection is over." As the word "over" fell, many people's hearts relaxed. However, more people were still unable to calm down. Obviously, there was a dark horse in the selection of the 5 academies. He triggered 3 brilliant lights and suppressed the top 3 of the sword ranking. He pulled out the nine-dragon thunder prison and defeated all the geniuses. Yiguchen, without a doubt, was the first in this 5 academies selection. He would also be the absolute genius that the 5 academies would strive to compete for. Who is this Dugu Wubai? Who knows, there are always a few geniuses in the Sword Dynasty from time to time, but geniuses like Dugu Wubai are really rare. As the selection came to an end, there were a lot of discussions around them. Next, it was time to choose the academy. Many people were curious about which academy Yiguchen would join. However, the next scene, the next moment, the world, once again, the world, once again, the world, and everyone. On Goddess Academy's ship, a beautiful figure flashed towards Yiguchen like a fairy. When Yiguchen saw who it was, a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. Previously, his attention was focused on the 9-Dragon Thunder Prison, so he did not pay attention to the people from the 5 great academies in the sky. Therefore, he did not know that Mu Xingzu was among them. At this moment, the selection was over. Mu Xingzu could no longer hold back the overflowing longing in her heart and rushed towards Yiguchen. Under the gaze of thousands of people, Mu Xingzu, like a swallow returning to its nest, fiercely threw herself into Yiguchen's arms. Master! Mu Xingzu's voice was trembling with sobs. Only the heavens knew how much despair Mu Xingzu had felt after hearing about the Tianhuang Plains. Yiguchen was her only salvation. If not for Yiguchen, she would still be the unknown girl who was bullied by Qin Lin, in the outer courtyard of the Sword Sect Pagoda Forest. It was Yiguchen who changed Mu Xingzu's fate. Xingzhu, after going through so much, Yiguchen also sighed in his heart when he saw the familiar figure that he had not seen for a long time. He raised his hand and patted Mu Xingzu's little head. This scene caused the surrounding crowd to stare with their eyes and mouths wide open. Isn't that the proud daughter of Tianxian College, Mu Xingzu? She actually called Dugu Wubai master. Could her mysterious master be Dugu Wubai? Is it really master? Many people were shocked and tongue-tied, but there were also people who were puzzled. Was Dugu Wubai really just Mu Xingzu's master? Mu Xingzu's attachment and intimate attitude made it difficult for people not to think about him. Mu Xingzu is actually young Master Dugu's disciple. Han Lingxian was dazed. At this moment, she finally understood why Yiguchen's expression changed when he saw Mu Xingzu's name. My heart is broken. Some young prodigies also heard the sound of their hearts breaking. Mu Xingzu was a proud daughter whose beauty and strength were on par with each other. In addition, she was beautiful and pure. In the Sword Dynasty, she had many followers. TSK, I wonder what Jiang Fengmian and Shangguan Jingshan will think when they see this scene. Many people couldn't help but look at Jiang Fengmian on the ship. Among Mu Xingzu's suitors, there were only 2 people who were thought to have the best chance. One was the 5th on the sword ranking, Jiang Fengmian, a peerless heaven pride of the Jiang clan. He was a modest young master. The other person was the 7th on the sword ranking, Shangguan Jingshan of the Shangguan clan. He was also a top divine dwelling stage heaven pride whose name resounded throughout the Sword Dynasty. Jiang Fengmian's eyes were deep, and there was a strange look in his eyes. He had pursued Mu Xingzu for a long time, but Mu Xingzu had never spoken to him. Not to mention physical contact, they didn't even speak much. But at this moment, Mu Xingzu threw herself into the arms of a young man in public without any scruples and sobbed. If Yiguchen was an old man in his 70s or 80s, no one would think much of it. But Yiguchen was only a few years older than Mu Xingzu. At this moment, he looked more like a couple who had been separated for a long time. It was no wonder that people would think much of it. That Dugu Wubai is Xingzhu's master. How is that possible? Yinglang's beautiful eyes widened in shock. She glanced at Jiang Fengmian from the corner of her eye. Jiang Fengmian narrowed his eyes slightly, his face expressionless. If it was anyone else, seeing the woman they liked fall into someone else's arms, they would feel uncomfortable in their heart. Xingzhu rejected the dean's offer to take her in as a disciple for Dugu Wubai. She's really... Yinglang was completely speechless. She had thought that Mu Xingzu's master would be a peerless expert, or at least a top venerable stage existence. But who would have thought that he was only a 4th-level spirit bridge of heaven and earth? Even if Dugu Wubai was talented and powerful, in Yinglang's eyes, he couldn't compare to a single finger of the dean of Tianxian College. TSK, once the dean knows about this, he'll most likely make trouble for Dugu Wubai, Yinglang thought to herself. When Shangguan Yan saw this scene, she was also slightly stunned. Mu Xingzu's master is actually Dugu Wubai. If my cousin finds out, he'll probably fight with Dugu Wubai, Shangguan Yan muttered to herself. The cousin she was talking about was naturally Shangguan Jingshan, who was ranked 7th on the sword leaderboard. He was different from Jiang Fengmian's humble and low-key personality. Shangguan Jingshan's personality was just like his name. He was extremely arrogant and domineering. Shangguan Yan knew that with Shangguan Jingshan's personality, if he found out about this, he definitely wouldn't let Yi Guqin off. Mu Xingzu blushed slightly when she sensed the strange and astonished gazes around her. She really missed him too much, so she didn't have any scruples. Did Xingzhu cause trouble for master? Mu Xingzu asked embarrassedly with tears in her starry eyes. She naturally could not address Yi Guqin as senior brother Yi in front of so many people. Heh! Xingzhu, you've also become so outstanding. Yi Guqin patted Mu Xingzu's head. In his eyes, there was only the appreciation of a senior looking at a junior. Mu Xingzu lowered her head shyly. She would only return to her original personality in front of Yi Guqin. At this moment, a faint voice sounded. Heh, it's better to see than to hear. I didn't expect Miss Mu's rumored mysterious master to be you, Sword Demon Dugu Wubai. When Yi Guqin heard this, he revealed a strange expression and glanced over. A blue-haired, cultured, and elegant young man walked through the air with a smile that seemed to contain a deep meaning at the corner of his mouth. Ranked 5th on the sword leaderboard, Jiang Fengmian. Yi Guqin's eyes were deep. Everyone looked over. Was the Azura arena going to unfold next? Chapter 9-10. Jiang Fengmian was famous in the Sword Dynasty. He was a peerless genius ranked 5th on the sword leaderboard, a divine palace genius. His background, strength, and appearance were all perfect. Such a person was naturally sought after by tens of thousands of people. He was the dream lover of many young girls in the Sword Dynasty. And Jiang Fengmian's personality was very single-minded. He had always pursued Mu Xingzu, even though there was no result. At this moment, Jiang Fengmian finally couldn't hold himself back and walked out to ask. Jiang Fengmian, what is the meaning of this? Mu Xingzu's beautiful face darkened slightly. Although her attitude towards Jiang Fengmian couldn't be said to be very good, she didn't dislike him either. At least compared to the pestering Shangguan Jingshan, Jiang Fengmian was a modest gentleman. He would never do anything that crossed the line. But as long as the matter concerned Yi Guqin, Mu Xingzu would become very sensitive. If Jiang Fengmian targeted Yi Guqin, Mu Xingzu would never allow it. Can't I just say hello? Jiang Fengmian spread his hands. Mu Xingzu was too protective of Yi Guqin. 5th on the sword leaderboard, Jiang Fengmian. This one has long heard of your name, Yi Guqin said indifferently. How can he compare to Brother Dugu? He's not famous, but when he does, he amazes the world. As expected of Miss Mu's master. It's just that, I'm very curious. How did Brother Dugu teach Miss Mu? To think that she would reject the dean's request to take her in as a disciple. Jiang Fengmian's eyes narrowed slightly as he played with a maple leaf in his hand. Yi Guqin didn't expect that Mu Xingzu would reject the offer of Tianxian College's dean because of her. Mu Xingzu, will only ever have one master, Jiang Fengmian. Why are you saying all this? Mu Xingzu increasingly disliked Jiang Fengmian's tone. It's nothing. I was just curious and wanted to ask Brother Dugu for advice. As Jiang Fengmian spoke, maple leaves began to fall from the sky. The maple was red like fire, but it carried a chilling sword-intent aura. Jiang Fengmian stood tall amidst the dancing red maples. His long blue hair fluttered in the wind, making him look otherworldly. The people and scenery blended together, creating an extremely beautiful scene. However, it also carried a murderous aura of autumn. Is Jiang Fengmian going to attack Dugu Wubai? Cries of surprise rang out one after another from the surroundings. There was absolutely no doubt about Jiang Fengmian's strength. He could easily wipe out Hua Xingjie and the other heaven prides by himself. After all, the heaven prides of the divine dwelling stage were considered top existences in the South Horizon region. Not to mention that in the Sword Dynasty, only the top 10 heaven prides on the sword list were existences of the divine dwelling stage. Divine dwelling stage. Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows, but there wasn't the slightest fear on his face. With his current strength, he no longer needed to fear the divine dwelling stage. Not to mention that he had also obtained the 9-Dragon Thunder Prison, which had caused Yiguchen's combat strength to soar once again. In the past, he had to risk his life in a battle against Gu Xiaoyang, who was of the Divine Dwelling stage. But now, Yiguchen had stepped into the 4th level of the Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge. For him, the Divine Dwelling stage was only a slightly stronger opponent. Stop, Jiang Fengmian, don't be presumptuous in front of Master. Mu Xingzu stood in front of Yiguchen. Although she had instinctive confidence in Yiguchen, no matter what, the Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge was bound to be at a disadvantage against someone of the Divine Dwelling stage. Enough, Jiang Fengmian, there is still the matter of the Academy's enrollment. Don't interrupt, Bei Xian Elder said. Seeing that Mu Xingzu and Bei Xian Elder had spoken, Jiang Fengmian revealed a faint smile. Fine, I was rude. But in the future, I will certainly ask Brother Dugu for advice. Everyone revealed a strange expression. It seemed that because of Mu Xingzu, Jiang Fengmian was going to clash with Yiguchen. I will definitely accompany you to the end. Yiguchen smiled. He came to the Sword Dynasty to gain experience, so he would naturally accept all challenges. Who do you think will win between Dugu Wubai and Jiang Fengmian? Of course it will be young Master Jiang. Although Dugu Wubai is not weak, he only has the Heaven and Earth Spirit Bridge. Many people present began to discuss. But the majority of people were still optimistic about Jiang Fengmian. After all, Jiang Fengmian had been famous for a long time and was a divine dwelling heaven pride. In contrast, although Yiguchen was amazing, his achievements were limited. He could easily defeat Hua Xingjie and a group of heaven prides, including the top 10 heaven prides on the sword ranking. Okay, the 5 academy selection is over. Next is the time to choose the academy. Our Tensei College is the head of the 5 great academies. We have abundant resources and countless experts. I believe that everyone will make a wise choice. In the sky, Elder Hua Mo took a step forward and spoke in a clear voice. The 5 great academies of the Sword Dynasty were Tensei College, Sun Moon College, Long River College, Tianxian College, and Sacred Cliff College. Tensei College was indeed the head of the 5 great academies. In the past 5 academies competition, Tensei College had also dominated. Hua Mo's words were more for Yiguchen to hear. In his opinion, with Yiguchen's talent, his best choice was naturally to join Tensei College. As soon as Elder Hua Mo finished speaking, many heaven prides who passed the selection immediately joined Tensei College. Kong Kong, Han Lingxian, and the others all looked at Yiguchen. Yan Cho seemed to be waiting for Yiguchen's decision. Yiguchen pondered for a moment. When Hua Mo saw this, he frowned slightly. This was different from what he had expected. Yiguchen should have chosen Tensei College without any hesitation. Thinking of this, Hua Mo couldn't help but say, Dugu Wubai, your talent and strength are indeed good. If you join Tensei College, your strength will definitely improve. Although Hua Mo was a little unhappy that Yiguchen had stepped on Hua Wuxiu and Hua Xingjie to get to the top, Yiguchen's talent was still outstanding. However, Yiguchen's talent was there after all. Hua Mo could not give up recruiting Yiguchen because of this. Tsk Tisk, he's indeed the Sword Devil. The elders of the academy actually took the initiative to recruit him. Some of the surrounding heaven prides looked on enviously. What are you talking about, Hua Mo? Who was the one who said that he would never accept a level 3 Heaven and Earth Bridge disciple and give him to Sacred Cliff College? Are you going back on your words? Bei Xian Elder was so angry that he blew his beard and glared at Hua Mo. Hua Mo said calmly, I didn't know that he was the Sword Devil at that time. Now that I know, I will try my best to fight for him. Hua Mo's face didn't turn red, and his heart didn't beat fast. You are really shameless. Bei Xian Elder's hair and beard stood on end as he glared at Hua Mo. Sacred Cliff College finally had a chance to pick up the Sword Devil, but Hua Mo went back on his words. In this way, it was obvious that the Sword Devil would choose a college. Even Bei Xian Elder himself didn't think that Yiguchen would abandon the top of the 5 colleges and choose Sacred Cliff College, the last of the 5 colleges. Yi Guqin's eyes were still calm. He didn't feel any joy because of Hua Mo's recruitment. This was because he saw Hua Tengfei standing behind Hua Mo. At this moment, Hua Tengfei's eyes were also cold. If Yi Guqin chose Tensei College, he would be in a lot of trouble. Yi Guqin had also heard that Tensei College seemed to be completely controlled by the Hua family. He had cut off one of Hua Tengfei's arms and made Hua Xingjie so miserable. Joining Tensei College was no different from asking for trouble. Besides, the sword monk Xuanlian, who ranked 4th on the sword roll, was in Sacred Cliff College. Therefore, Yi Guqin didn't think too much about it and said directly, "I choose Sacred Cliff College." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone fell silent. Chapter 9-11. Many people thought that they were hallucinating. However, there were even more people who didn't believe it. Dugu Wubai, what did you just say? Say it again. Even Elder Hua Mo thought that he had misheard. Although they were both part of the 5 great colleges, the difference between Tensei College and Sacred Cliff College was like heaven and earth. Anyone with the slightest discernment ability would know which academy to choose. I choose the Divine Cliff Academy. Yi Guqin was neither servile nor overbearing, and his tone was indifferent. Mu Xingzu didn't say anything, even though she knew that Sacred Cliff College was the weakest of the 5 great colleges. However, Yi Guqin must have his reasons for choosing Sacred Cliff College. Mu Xingzu wouldn't influence Yi Guqin's decision. Am I dreaming? Bei Xian Elder was stunned. Yi Guqin's choice was a blessing from the heavens for Sacred Cliff College. In the past 5 academy selection, there had never been a champion who chose the Divine Cliff Academy. Dugu Wubai, do you know how stupid your choice is? Hua Mo's face darkened. Since Yi Guqin was willing to join Tensei College, Hua Mo naturally wouldn't care about Hua Xingjie. He would even pull Yi Guqin into the Hua family and train him to become the pride of the Hua family. However, he didn't expect Yi Guqin to be so tactless. It's my freedom to choose. Elder, you don't have to interfere. Yi Guqin's expression was cold. He didn't like Hua Mo's attitude. Yi Guqin's choice caused an uproar. The Purple Smoke Tribal Lord and the Yellow Dragon Tribal Lord heaved a sigh of relief. With Yi Guqin's innate talent, who knew what kind of monster he would become if he was nurtured by Tensei College? However, if he were to enter Sacred Cliff College, which was ranked last among the 5 great colleges, then Yi Guqin's growth would undoubtedly be greatly limited. But what they didn't know was that Yi Guqin didn't need anyone to teach him. He only needed some resources to improve himself. The academy wasn't Yi Guqin's ultimate goal. It was just a temporary place. Yi Guqin's real goal was to become the Sword Son, participate in the Battle of Prodigies, and join an Overlord-level force. Good, very good. Hua Mo took a deep breath. This was the first time a prodigy had rejected Tensei College's request. When Han Lingxian saw that Yi Guqin had joined Sacred Cliff College, she also chose to join Sacred Cliff College without hesitation. Kong Kong also chose to join Sacred Cliff College. Even Yan Chou-ku had chosen the Divine Cliff Academy. Elder Hua Mo's face was incomparably gloomy. Yi Guqin's action had thoroughly offended Tensei College's dignity. Ha, old man Hua Mo, a forced melon won't be sweet. Bei Xian Elder laughed heartily. He was in an extremely good mood. Elder Hua Mo's face was gloomy. Every prodigy had the right to make their own choices in the 5 great colleges selection. Hua Mo couldn't force Yi Guqin to join Tensei College. However, at this moment, Hua Tengfei, who was standing behind Hua Mo, suddenly stood up. His eyes were filled with resentment as he said, "Elder Hua Mo, I have something to report." "What is it?" Hua Mo's tone was cold. It was obvious that he was still angry at Yi Guqin's choice. "My hand was dislocated by Dugu Wubai," Hua Tengfei said loudly, his voice echoing in all directions. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. No matter how bad Hua Tengfei was, he was still a member of the Hua family. In the Sword Dynasty, offending the Hua family was tantamount to courting death. What did you say? Your hand was dislocated by Dugu Wubai. Hua Mo's face froze, and then a trace of joy appeared in his eyes. For him, it didn't matter whether Hua Tingfei's hand was dislocated or not, because Hua Tingfei's talent was limited. However, it couldn't be better if he could use this as an excuse to suppress Yi Guqin. Nonsense, Hua Mo, are you looking for an excuse to deal with Dugu Wubai? Bei Xian Elder immediately shouted. In his opinion, Hua Mo must have instructed Hua Tingfei to slander Yi Guqin. What I said is not a lie. Many people in the Cloud Dynasty can testify. Even some people here can testify. Han Lingxian, don't you agree? Hua Tingfei took a step forward and shouted. His eyes turned to Han Lingxian. Han Lingshuan's delicate face turned pale. Who would have thought that the situation that was supposed to be settled would have such a turn of events? Seeing that Yi Guqin didn't join Tensei College, Hua Tingfei immediately jumped out to make things difficult for Yi Guqin. However, this was the truth. Countless gazes turned to Han Lingxian in unison. Han Lingshuan's face changed. Although she didn't want anything to happen to Yi Guqin, it was difficult for her to lie in front of everyone. There's no need to prove anything. I was the one who cut off Hua Tingfei's arm. Yi Guqin put his hands behind his back and looked indifferent. The corners of many people's eyes twitched. Yi Guqin was probably the only person who could say such a thing in public with such a calm attitude. After all, not everyone had the courage to offend the Hua family. This is going to be troublesome. Bei Xian Elder's face darkened. This Dugu Wubai is too good at causing trouble. Shangguan Yan also murmured. Good boy, you can still be so calm after cutting off the arm of our Hua family's disciple. Who gave you the courage? Hua Mo's mouth curved into an undetectable smile. He wanted to lure Yi Guqin into a trap. He deserves it. Yi Guqin said indifferently. Many people swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Yi Guqin's words were tit for tat. You're courting death. The Purple Smoke Lord and the Yellow Dragon Lord both sneered. Yi Guqin's actions were really courting death. Although you've made a big mistake, the Hua family is not unreasonable. We'll give you 3 choices. First, let Hua Tingfei cut off your arm. It's an eye for an eye. Second, hand over the 9 Dragon Thunder prison as compensation. Third, join Tensei College. Not only will all the grudges be written off, but the Hua family will also train you. Hua Mo said indifferently. Once these 3 choices were made, it caused an uproar like a tide. Only a fool would choose the first choice. For a swordsman, the arm was very important. If it was cut off, even if a new arm was made with a Saint Elixir, it would be far less flexible than the original arm. The second choice was also very disadvantageous. The value of the 9 Dragon Thunder prison was obvious. In the eyes of the crowd, the third choice seemed to be the most reliable. They didn't have to pay any price and would be trained by the Hua family. Old man Hua Mo, you've gone too far. Bei Xian Elder was furious. This choice was obviously to force Yi Guqin to join Tensei College. Let me warn you. It's best if no one interferes in this matter. After all, Dugu Wubai hurt a disciple of the Hua family. It's impossible for him not to pay any price. Hua Mo said coldly. In the Sword Dynasty, the Hua family's prestige was unparalleled. You. Bei Xian Elder's face flushed red. Hua Mo was right, and he couldn't refute it. Yi Guqin's expression was still indifferent. How could he not know that if he chose the third option, then the final outcome would only be to become a puppet of the Hua clan and be used by them? Sorry, my choice is, not a single one. Chapter 9:12. Hearing Yi Guqin's words, everyone's face was full of astonishment. To some extent, Yi Guqin had indeed made the 4th choice out of the 3. That was courting death. Dugu Wubai, you're making fun of me. Hua Mo stepped out of the void and unleashed his celestial palace venerable aura. The entire sky changed color as if it was disturbed by Hua Mo's aura. As an elder of Tensei College, Hua Mo's strength was unquestionable. Feeling the oncoming storm, Yi Guqin stood in the void and did not move at all. His black hair fluttered in the wind and his expression was as calm as water. Everyone was slightly speechless when they saw this scene. It was indeed impressive to be able to maintain such composure in front of a venerable. Keep pretending. Let's see how you're going to deal with this. At this moment, Hua Xingjie, Yu Shuangyan, Yin Wufeng, and the others, who had been beaten up by Yi Guqin, woke up. Although they still couldn't move, at least they were still conscious. Yu Shuangyan looked at Yi Guqin in the sky with resentment. She wanted to know how Yi Guqin would deal with this situation. Hua Xingjie, Yin Wufeng, and the others were also staring at him. Han Lingshuan's heart clenched. In her eyes, the Hua family was a giant that she could only look up to. Although Yi Guqin was amazing, he hadn't grown up yet. Compared to the Hua family, it was like an ant trying to shake a tree. Everyone was curious about how Yi Guqin would deal with this situation. Dugu Wubai, I'll give you one last chance. What's your choice? Venerable Hua Mo's aura covered the sky and made it difficult for many geniuses to breathe. Hua Mo, you've gone too far. Bei Xian Elder also stepped out. This is my Hua family's business. Are you sure you want to get involved? Hua Mo threatened. You. Bei Xian Elder was stunned. Yi Guqin had cut off Hua Tengfei's arm. This was an ironclad fact that even he had admitted to it. If Bei Xian Elder were to make a move, he would not be in the right. Humph, Dugu Boundless, weren't you arrogant? Now you have nothing to say. Hua Tengfei stood out, his face full of satisfaction. He never thought that Yi Guqin would actually walk right into his trap and openly admit this fact. It's just cutting off one of your arms. So what if I take your life? Yi Guqin's lips curled into a cold smile. Crazy. When everyone heard Yi Guqin's words, they thought he was crazy. How could he say such words in front of Hua Mo in front of so many people? No one could protect Yi Guqin. Even if he were to become a disciple of Sacred Cliff College, it would affect the dignity of the Hua family. Dugu Wubai, I dare you to say that again. Hua Mo was infuriated. He had originally planned to recruit Yi Guqin into the Hua family and then control him so that he could be used by the Hua family. However, Yi Guqin's attitude now could be said to be contempt for the Hua family. Dugu Wubai, you've really lost your mind. So what if you won first place in this selection? With such a temperament, it's no wonder you're called the Sword Demon. Hua Tengfei was also furious. This person is the Sword Demon, a demon. Even the prodigies of the Purple Smoke Ridge were massacred by him. The Purple Smoke Overlord shouted. Indeed, the Sword Demon's murderous nature is too strong. If he were to be trained in the college, it would not be a blessing for the Sword Dynasty. The Yellow Dragon Overlord shouted. Their shouts caused a lot of discussion among the crowd. You're shameless. Qin Paisai and the others were so angry that their bodies trembled. They were the ones who had attacked first, but now they were slandering Yi Guqin for his murderous nature. Ha, are you done? Yi Guqin's eyes were cold. No matter what, Dugu Wubai, I'll suppress you today so that you can repent and reflect. Hua Mo was about to attack. How dare you? Bei Xian Elder's eyes widened in anger. Yi Guqin was already a disciple of Sacred Cliff College, but Hua Mo still dared to suppress him in front of him. Just as Hua Mo was about to attack, Yi Guqin's lips curled into a cold smile. He slowly took out a token and said coldly, open your dog eyes and see if I'm qualified to cut off Hua Tengfei's arm. The medallion was shaped like a sword, and it was shining brightly. That's the Sword Master's token. It's the Sword Master's token. How is that possible? Everyone's eyes were focused on the token in Yi Guqin's hand. Some of the lords were stunned and then lost their voices. The token was the Sword Master's token that Kenpo had given to Yi Guqin. Saber 9 and Yi Guqin were the only ones who knew about the gift of the token. Therefore, Yi Guqin was not afraid that his identity would be exposed if he took out the Sword Master's token. This This is the Sword Master's token. Hua Mo's movements froze as if he was frozen. The Sword Master's token had special rights in the Sword Dynasty. Seeing the Sword Master's token was like seeing the Sword Master himself. In other words, the moment Yi Guqin took out the Sword Master's token, his identity was comparable to the Sword Master. The Sword Master's status in the Sword Dynasty was equivalent to that of the princes of other dynasties. Would Hua Mo dare to suppress a prince in front of everyone? No, I don't believe it. How can you have the Sword Master's token? Who are you? Hua Tengfei shook his head in disbelief, his breathing almost stopped. The Sword Master's token was extremely rare. There were only a few pieces in the entire Sword Dynasty. It's fake, it must be fake. Hua Xingjie, Yu Shuangyan, and the others also couldn't believe it. Do you know the consequences of forging the Sword Master's token in the Sword Dynasty? Hua Mo said coldly. The Sword Master's token represented the Sword Master's identity. In the Sword Dynasty, if someone was found to have forged the Sword Master's token, they would be executed immediately. Young Master Dugu. Han Lingxuan's heart tightened. Not to mention the outsiders, even Han Lingxian and the others couldn't believe that Yi Guqin had the Sword Master's token. The Sword Master's token was too rare, and there were only a few pieces in total. Han Lingxian knew that Yi Guqin came from another dynasty, so how could he have the Sword Dynasty's Sword Master's token? You can try it. Yi Guqin threw the Sword Master's token to Bei Xian Elder. Bei Xian Elder caught the token and looked at it. His eyes were filled with shock and doubt. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Bei Xian Elder. Whether the Sword Master's token was real or fake, these elders could tell at a glance. It's the real Sword Master's token. Hua Mo, you can take a look if you don't believe me. Bei Xian Elder said and handed the Sword Master's token to Hua Mo. Hua Mo snatched the token and looked at it carefully. His face instantly turned ugly. Seeing Hua Mo's expression, how could the others not know? The token Yi Guqin took out was indeed the real Sword Master's token. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but take a deep breath. First, he broke Hua Wuxiu's sword move, then he used the 3 brilliant lights. Then, he pulled out the 9-dragon thunder prison that even Hua Wuxiu couldn't pull out. Now, he even took out the Sword Master's token. How many trump cards does this sword demon Dugu Wubai have? This. Han Lingxian was also dumbfounded. Yi Guqin always exceeded her expectations. At this moment, many people looked at Hua Mo, Hua Tengfei, and the others with a hint of playfulness. Since Yi Guqin took out the Sword Master's token, it would be impossible for Hua Mo to suppress and punish Yi Guqin today. Chapter 9:13. Hua Mo's hand trembled with anger as he held the Sword Master token. He carefully examined the token, not letting go of any detail. He wanted to find any flaws. However, this token was given to Yi Guqin by Kenpo. How could it be fake? Even if Hua Mo stared at it with his eyes wide open, he couldn't find any traces of forgery. Elder Hua Mo, it can't be real. Hua Tengfei's expression was extremely ugly. If Yi Guqin didn't have any tricks up his sleeve, he was destined to fall into the hands of the Hua family. However, Yi Guqin had the Sword Master token, so it was a different story. As a prince, cutting off Hua Tengfei's arm wasn't a big deal. Not to mention Hua Tengfei, even cutting off Hua Wuxiu's arm wouldn't be a big deal. The Sword Master had such a high status in the Sword Dynasty. This was also the reason why all the geniuses of the Sword Dynasty wanted to compete for the position of Sword Master. Hua Mo threw the Sword Master token to Yi Guqin with a cold face. Yi Guqin kept it with a calm expression. The Sword Master token is extremely rare and precious in the Sword Dynasty. Where did you get it from? Hua Mo questioned. Do I need to tell you? Yi Guqin's eyes darkened. Hua Mo had made things difficult for Yi Guqin over and over again. This made Yi Guqin's heart turn cold. Enough, Hua Mo. Do you really think the Hua family can cover the sky in the Sword Dynasty? Since Dugu Wubai took out the Sword Master token, his status is just like a Sword Master. Are you going to question a sword master? Bei Xian elder couldn't stand it anymore and shouted coldly. Hua Mo's expression changed when he heard this. With his status, he really didn't have the qualifications to question a sword master. Elder, let's just forget about it. My arm. Hua Tengfei was disgusted as if he had eaten a fly. He thought that he could use this opportunity to target Yi Guqin and embarrass him. Who would have thought that he would be the one embarrassed? What else can I do, you trash? Hua Mo slapped Hua Tengfei and sent him flying. Hua Tengfei spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was swollen like a bun. You trash, your talent is mediocre, and you only know how to cause trouble for the family all day long. Hua Mo couldn't find anyone to vent his anger on, so he could only vent his anger on Hua Tengfei and violently slap his face. If there was no enmity between Hua Tengfei and Yi Guqin, perhaps Hua Mo could find a way to remedy the situation. Hua Tengfei was stunned by the slap. His face was bruised and the corners of his mouth were cracked. Looking at the Hua family members who could only swallow their broken teeth, many of the feudal lords present were speechless. Some of the lords from the rogue cultivator camp looked at Yi Guqin with admiration. In the Sword Dynasty, it had been a long time since anyone dared to directly oppose the Hua family. Yi Guqin's action could be said to be against universal condemnation. How could it be like this? The faces of the Purple Smoke feudal lord and the Yellow Dragon feudal lord turned ashen. The moment Yi Guqin took out the Sword Sun token, they knew in their hearts that they couldn't take revenge. In the Sword Dynasty, taking revenge on a Sword Sun was like courting death. Although Yi Guqin wasn't a real Sword Sun, as long as he had the Sword Sun token, he was a Sword Sun. Qin Zhen, Qin Paisai, Han Lingxian, and the others had their horizons broadened. Yi Guqin was like a real dragon that was lying dormant in the grass. Once he made a move, it was shocking. The more I look at this kid, the more I like him. Bei Xian elder smiled. Just when everyone thought that the storm would end, a faint voice suddenly sounded. A faint voice suddenly spread from the sky. Heroes come from the young. Today, you have opened my eyes. Although the voice wasn't loud, it seemed to reach everyone's ears. Yi Guqin's eyes narrowed, and he frowned slightly. He had experienced this kind of power before. In the void, space twisted, and an old man in a purple and gold robe appeared. The void around him trembled slightly, as if it couldn't withstand the vigorous power in the old man's body. This old man was a false saint expert. First Elder. Seeing this, Hua Mo bowed. It's the first elder of Tensei College, Hua Yuntao. He's a false saint expert. The crowd was in an uproar. A false saint expert was definitely a top existence in the entire Sword Dynasty. They were the pillars of the dynasty. Hua Yuntao was not only the first elder of Tensei College, but also a false saint expert of the Hua family. He's here. Bei Xian elder's face froze. In front of Hua Yuntao, he wasn't qualified to say anything. They weren't even on the same level. Why is the first elder of Tensei College here? It's most likely because of the commotion caused by the 3 great heavenly gates that attracted the attention of these big shots. Some people guessed. In the past 5 academies selection, the false saint experts of the 5 academies wouldn't appear. This time, Yi Guqin must have attracted the attention of these big shots because he triggered the 3 lights illuminating the world. Dugu Wubai, you're indeed admirable. In this world, there's no hatred that can't be resolved. If you join Tensei College, everything will be written off. The first elder, Hua Yuntao, said calmly. As soon as these words came out, many people sighed with emotion. He was indeed a false saint first elder. His bearing and breadth of mind were definitely not comparable to Hua Mo and the others. But how could Yi Guqin believe Hua Yuntao's words? He and the Hua family had already formed quite a bit of enmity. It could be said that Yi Guqin became famous by stepping on the Hua family's genius. Hua Yuntao seemed to be quite broad-minded, but he also wanted to control Yi Guqin and use him for the Hua family. Thank you for your kindness, First Elder, but I've already chosen Sacred Cliff College. I can only say sorry, Yiguchen said calmly. He actually refused. Everyone was stunned. A false saint first elder had personally invited him. How could he be so untactful? Dugu Wubai is too arrogant. Hua Xingjie, Yin Wufeng, Yushuang Yan, and the other geniuses couldn't help but say. Not to mention them, even the onlookers around felt that Yiguchen was a little arrogant. A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. You may not understand. Well, I'll let you join Tensei College first. Then you'll naturally understand my painstaking efforts. Hua Yuntao said and waved his hand lightly. Yiguchen immediately felt that the surrounding air was compressed and the void seemed to have condensed into a cage to imprison him. Mu Xingzu and Yiguchen stood side by side and also felt the pressure of this aura. Hua Yuntao was going to take Yiguchen away by force. Elder Hua, don't you think you've gone too far? Bei Xian Elder suppressed his anger and said. Such an unpolished gem will only be buried in Sacred Cliff College. Hua Yuntao didn't care about Bei Xian Elder at all. He looked at Yiguchen who was being imprisoned and was about to be taken away by force. Everyone in the audience sighed in their hearts. Who could stop a false saint first elder? No one can control the path of the sword demon. I'll decide my own path. Yiguchen's long hair fluttered in the wind as he shouted coldly. A vigorous aura suddenly burst out. At the same time, the Azura sword Dao exploded, and the blood-red sword light swept out in all directions. He held the 9-dragon thunder prison in his hand, and endless lightning accompanied by the blood-red sword light burst out. When the sword came out, it was as if the heavens were falling and all living beings were grieving together. Azura Tribulation, the fall of all living beings. Yiguchen didn't have any scruples and directly attacked Hua Yuntao with his sword. This move shocked the eyes of tens of thousands. Chapter 9:14. What kind of existence was a false saint? Even if they had not really passed the heavenly tribulation, they were still the strongest under the heavenly tribulation saint. Not to mention the sword dynasty, even in the overlord forces, the dignity of a false saint was not to be violated. But now, Yiguchen, a mere fourth-stage spirit bridge of heaven and earth, dared to draw his sword against a false saint. Crazy. Everyone thought that Yiguchen had gone crazy. No false saint could tolerate the provocation of an ant. Not to mention that an existence like Yiguchen was inferior to an ant in front of a false saint. At best, he could only be regarded as dust. The blood-red sword Qi seemed to want to cut through the 8 desolate lands. Mixed with the lightning power of the 9-dragon thunder prison, it had a terrifying power that could break the 10 realms of the heavens. Hua Xingjie, Yushuang Yan, and the others saw this scene, their pupils trembling. If Yiguchen had used this method against them before, then there would not even be a speck of them left. Is this the true strength of young Master Dugu? Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, and the others were completely dumbfounded. The Azura sword Dao plus the life fall plus the 9-dragon thunder prison. It would not be easy for the divine-dwelling heaven prides in the top 10 of the sword ranking to receive this sword. Jiang Fengmian's face froze, his pupils revealing an unprecedented seriousness. He did have a trace of contempt for Yiguchen before. However, this sliver of disdain vanished like smoke under this sword. The strength that Yiguchen had shown was enough to threaten the top 10 heaven prides in the sword ranking. Young man, are you really so stupid? Hua Yuntao's face was still indifferent. But his tone was a little cold. Yiguchen dared to draw his sword against him, which was an insult and contempt to a false saint. Hua Yuntao made a grabbing motion with one hand, and the terrifying sword light directly shattered in the void. The gap between Yiguchen and a false saint was too big. There was no way to make up for this gap. Unless Yiguchen sacrificed himself again and borrowed the sword from the heavens. Since that's the case, I'll give you a small punishment. Hua Yuntao's 5 fingers closed, and his true qi resonated with the void. Yiguchen immediately felt that the surrounding air seemed to have become harder than metal. It was as if there were countless iron walls were pressing against him. Although a false saint expert's ability to control over space was a true saint expert, it was much stronger than a true saint expert. Cough. Yiguchen felt as if he was being crushed by a mountain. His bones were cracking and his skin seemed to be on the verge of cracking. Blood flowed down from the corner of Yiguchen's mouth. Not only that, but Mu Xingzhu, who was beside him, was also affected. Yi Xian was of Xian Shui was Yi. Yi Su Xian was to Xian. Mu Xingzhu stood by Yiguchen's side and endured Hua Yuntao's pressure. No. I'll go through thick and thin with you. Everyone looked at Yiguchen, who was coughing up blood. Many people in the crowd sighed. This was the consequence of offending the dignity of a false saint expert. Ha, good. So what if you're a genius? In the hands of the first elder, you're just a bug that can be crushed to death. Hua Xingjie laughed, feeling very carefree. Yu Shuangyan, Yin Wufeng, and the others were also very satisfied. The Purple Smoke Lord and the Yellow Dragon Lord were even more carefree. They couldn't wait for Hua Yuntao to crush Yiguchen to death. This is too much. Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, and the others clenched their fists. A false saint expert actually dared to disregard his status and attack a junior of the heaven and earth spiritual bridge. Elder Hua, that's enough. No matter what, Dugu Wubai is already a disciple of Sacred Cliff College, Bei Xian elder said coldly, suppressing the anger in his heart. Dugu Wubai, do you repent? Hua Yuntao said indifferently. Repent? Ha! Who in this world can make the sword demon repent? Yiguchen's black hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes were firm, and his tone was resolute. His body was covered in wounds, and blood was seeping out. No matter how strong Yiguchen's body was, it was impossible for him to resist the attack of a false saint expert. Blood was seeping out from Yiguchen's 7 apertures. At that moment, Yiguchen looked like a man made of blood. It was a rather terrifying sight. Master! Mu Xingzhu felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. Most of Hua Yuntao's attacks were oppressing Yiguchen, and Mu Xingzhu was only slightly affected. However, even this small impact was enough to break Mu Xingzhu's delicate body. She could not imagine what kind of pressure Yiguchen, who was in the center of the pressure, was under. See, it's not that this old man is unreasonable, but the young people nowadays are too stubborn. Hua Yuntao shook his head slightly. He had no intention of stopping. Looking at Yiguchen, who would rather die than submit, those who thought Yiguchen was too arrogant all shut their mouths. Yiguchen's performance left them speechless. I'm Qin Zhen, the Lord of Heavenly Wind. I beg the Great Elder to be merciful. Suddenly, a loud and clear voice rang out like a sudden clap of thunder. Qin Zhen knelt on one knee and cupped his fists toward Hua Yuntao. Yiguchen was a great benefactor to Heavenly Wind Ridge. Qin Zhen could not bear to see Yiguchen suffer such torture. I'm Lu Yun, the Lord of Dongyan. I beg the Great Elder to stop. I'm Yan Lang, the Lord of Cloudy Mountain. I beg the Great Elder to stop. I'm Gu Zhen, the Lord of Pingyang. I beg the Great Elder to stop. Qin Zhen's actions were like a chain reaction. One by one, the lords of the Sword Dynasty knelt on one knee and begged Hua Yuntao to stop. Most of these lords were from the Free Cultivator camp. They admired Yiguchen's character. At this moment, they were willing to speak up for Yiguchen. You. Hua Yuntao's expression changed for the first time. He frowned slightly. In just a short moment, hundreds of lords knelt on one knee and begged. These pleading voices formed a vast sound wave that covered the sky and earth and resounded through the universe. Great Elder, please stop. 1 or 2 lords did not mean much. But now, hundreds of lords had spoken up. That was equivalent to hundreds of supremacies. Even Hua Yuntao could not turn a blind eye to it. Great Elder, please stop. Han Lingxian, Qin Paisai, and other prodigies spoke up. Elder of Tensei College, please stop. Gui Jianqiu, Yan Chou, and other prodigies also spoke up in unison. For a moment, everyone except the lords and prodigies of the aristocratic families. Everyone else spoke up to plead for Yiguchen. Are you rebelling? Can't I even punish you a little? Hua Yuntao's tone was cold. Even with his identity as a false sage, he felt a sense of suffocation in his chest at this moment. These lords and prodigies dared to go against his authority as a false sage for Yiguchen. Elder Hua, this is what the people want. Please stop. Bei Xian Elder also shouted loudly. All these voices turned into monstrous sound waves that swept through the sky and shook Hua Yuntao's eardrums. His expression was slightly ugly. The authority of a false sage could not overcome the people's hearts. However, right at this moment, a charming voice that caused one to feel numb to the bones suddenly resounded in the heavens and the earth. Old Ghost Hua, with your status, you still have the nerve to attack a junior. You can be considered to have returned to life. As this voice sounded, a beautiful and charming figure appeared in the void. Chapter 9:15. Everyone's gaze was snatched away by this beautiful figure. In the void, a beautiful figure appeared. It was an extremely mature and charming woman. She wore a tight-fitting red cheongsam that outlined her exquisite and curvaceous figure, just like a ripe peach. She had a perfect face, bright red lips, and sparkling white teeth. She was extremely charming and seductive. Her long black hair casually fell to her slender waist, which made her look lazy and charming. Looking at this beautiful figure that suddenly appeared, the world was speechless. That round and smooth figure made many of the men present swallow a mouthful of saliva, feeling their mouths and tongues go dry. Kong Kong's eyes swept across the woman's chest, and he couldn't help but feel his nose heat up, and blood spurted out of it. Oh my God, magnificent and turbulent. Kong Kong covered his nose with both hands, trying to prevent himself from bleeding to death. The woman who suddenly appeared and stunned everyone was now looking at Hua Yuntao with a smile, but there was a dangerous light in her eyes. Old Hua, you dare to bully a disciple of Tianxian College? Aren't you afraid that I'll break your old bones? This woman was charming and graceful. However, the way she spoke had a hint of a domineering masculine woman. She stretched out her slender hand and made a grasping motion in the direction of Yiguchen and Mu Xingzu. Yiguchen immediately felt the space around him relax. The woman's move removed Hua Yuntao's oppression. Dean! Dean! Mu Xingzu's delicate body trembled, and she stopped moving. She gasped for breath and cast a grateful look at the charming woman. What? Dean, that woman is the legendary beautiful dean of Tianxian College, Wu Hongyan. Hearing Mu Xingzu's words, many people present were speechless. The 5 deans of the 5 major colleges were all pseudo-saint experts. Although their reputation spread throughout the Sword Dynasty, few people had seen the true faces of the 5 deans. After all, pseudo-saint experts were not easy to see. This mature and beautiful woman in a red cheongsam was Wu Hongyan, the dean of Tianxian College and a saint expert. Wu Hongyan, are you really going to intervene? Hua Yuntao's expression turned serious. He did not expect Wu Hongyan to be here. Ha, how could I not know that the 3 lights illuminated the world and shook the Sword Dynasty? But you, when I wasn't here, you attacked the people of Tianxian College. How do you want to settle this debt? Wu Hongyan's tone seemed to be joking, but there was a hint of danger in it. I am educating this Dugu Wu Bai. It has nothing to do with the female student of Tianxian College, Hua Yuntao said righteously. Is that so? Then. Wu Hongyan giggled. Suddenly, she raised her jade-like hand and pressed downwards. Stop. Hua Yuntao's expression changed slightly. He did not expect Wu Hongyan to attack so directly. There was a loud bang. Hua Shengjie, Yin Wufeng, Yushuang Yan, and the others on Thunder Prison Mountain were directly pressed into a deep pit. Blood gushed out of their mouths, and their bones were shattered. They fainted. Although Wu Hongyan's palm did not kill Hua Shengjie and the others, it was equivalent to crippling them. Looking at the miserable state of Hua Shengjie and the others, many people present swallowed a mouthful of saliva. They no longer looked at Wu Hongyan with the same infatuation as before. Instead, it was replaced by a kind of fear and dread. This dean seemed to be a little violent. Wu Hongyan, don't make a mistake. Hua Yuntao's aura fluctuated, and the wind and clouds changed color. Let's call it even. Old man, if you want to fight, I will accompany you to the end. Wu Hongyan's voice was extremely soft, but at this moment, she spoke in a domineering tone. You. Hua Yuntao's old face twitched. Facing Wu Hongyan, he really did not have any advantage. Seeing that Hua Yuntao, the fake saint first elder of Tensei College, was defeated by Wu Hongyan, many people sighed. Many people sighed in their hearts. Wu Hongyan was indeed extraordinary to be able to become the dean of the academy as a woman. At this moment, the atmosphere was a little tense. Wu Hongyan's figure flashed in front of Yi Guqin and Mu Xingzu. She looked at Yi Guqin with a pair of charming eyes and slightly narrowed her eyes. I will deal with you later. Yi Guqin was slightly taken aback, but he thought about it on second thought. It was probably about Mu Xingzu. Just as the atmosphere on Thunder Prison Mountain was gloomy, a faint laughter was heard. Well, Dean Wu, Elder Hua, let's end this here. Don't let others see the 5 colleges as a joke. A kind-looking old man with a sage-like aura appeared. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand and his white robe fluttered in the wind. The most eye-catching thing was that the old man's eyebrows were connected into a line. Although the old man's aura was not as strong as Wu Hongyan's or Hua Yuntao's, it was only a little bit weaker. First Elder Imei. Bei Xian Elder saw who it was and heaved a sigh of relief. This first Elder Imei was the first elder of Sacred Cliff College, also known as Venerable Imei. First Elder Imei was a 9th heaven venerable. From this, one could see the difference between Sacred Cliff College and Tensei College. Tensei College's first elder was a fake saint expert, while Sacred Cliff College's first elder was only a 9th heaven venerable. Although today's matter was unpleasant, no matter what, Dugu Wubai has already joined Sacred Cliff College. Elder Hua, it's about time, First Elder Imei said calmly. I'm teaching the younger generation. Hua Yuntao's face darkened slightly. He originally wanted to force Yi Guqin to join Tensei College, but now it seemed that he had suffered a double loss. Not only did he have a grudge with Yi Guqin, but Hua Xingjie was also half crippled. At the thought of this, Hua Yuntao looked at Yi Guqin with a cold gaze. In his opinion, it was all because of Yi Guqin's ignorance that led to the current situation. Elder Hua, since Dugu Wubai is a disciple of Sacred Cliff College, then he should be taught by Sacred Cliff College. You don't have to worry about it. Also, the dean asked me to pass a message to you. First Elder Imei said calmly. What message? Hua Yuntao frowned slightly. Sacred Cliff College was the weakest of the 5 major colleges. However, the dean of Sacred Cliff College was one of the strongest among the 5 deans. The dean said to stop before going too far. First Elder Imei said meaningfully. You, Hua Yuntao flung his sleeves. The dean of Sacred Cliff College was obviously warning him not to go too far. Even if he had the Hua family's background, he couldn't be fearless. Hua Yuntao exhaled deeply and looked at Yi Guqin. Dugu Wubai, a fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. I'll give you one last warning. Only by joining Tensei College can you truly grow. If you join, I'm confident that you'll be able to pass the 10th level of Mount Saint Crossing and become a disciple of the Holy Emblem in a year's time. As soon as Hua Yuntao spoke these words, it caused the surroundings to be astounded, and it gave rise to a mighty uproar. Chapter 9:16. What? A year later, Dugu Wubai will be able to pass the 10th level of Mount Saint Crossing? TSK, that's not a small promise. How many Holy Emblem disciples are there in the 5 academies? Back then, Hua Wuxiu had to prepare for about a year and a half before he could pass the 10th level of Mount Saint Crossing. Hua Yuntao's words shocked everyone, and they began to whisper to each other. Mount Saint Crossing was known by everyone in the Sword Dynasty. Mount Saint Crossing? Yi Guqin was slightly puzzled. He had vaguely heard of it before, but he didn't know much about it. Mu Xingzu saw the puzzlement in Yi Guqin's eyes and explained, Mount Saint Crossing is one of the 4 great mystic realms of the Sword Dynasty. It's a treasured place to test the growth and talent of a prodigy. What's the difference between it and the 3 sky gates? Yi Guqin was curious. Mount Saint Crossing has a total of 20 levels, and the test on each level is different. As long as you can pass the 10th level, it means that you have the possibility of becoming a false saint expert in the future. You can also become a Holy Emblem disciple recognized by all 5 academies. I see. Yi Guqin's eyes revealed a strange look. And if you can pass the 15th level, you are almost certain to become a false saint in the future, Mu Xingzu said. What if you can pass the 20th level? Yi Guqin asked again. No one in the Sword Dynasty has ever been able to do it. But rumor has it that if someone can reach the top of Mount Saint Crossing, then he is a legendary natural saint. Natural saint? Yi Guqin's eyes flashed. Natural saint means that if you don't fall in the future, you are destined to become a heavenly tribulation saint. When Mu Xingzu said this, her tone was filled with admiration and longing. Not to mention the Sword Dynasty, even in the entire South Horizon region, how many people could be called natural saints? Perhaps only a few prodigies like Di Haotian could be called natural saints. So that's how it is. Then what level have you reached? Yi Guqin asked. He remembered that Mu Xingzu was also a disciple of the Holy Emblem, which meant that she had at least passed the 10th level of Mount Saint Crossing. Xingzhu only barely passed the 15th level. Mu Xingzu said in embarrassment. Yi Guqin smiled faintly and said, not bad at all. Being able to pass the 15th floor meant that Mu Xingzu was very likely to become a false saint in the future. No wonder Wu Hongyan valued Mu Xingzu so much. Yi Guqin knew that Mu Xingzu was not very talented. She might not even be a venerable, let alone a false saint. However, Mu Xingzu had received Ying Ning's inheritance. She had the innate magical powers of an 8th class heavenly talent, the immortal soul pearl, which had greatly increased her talent. That was why she had the chance to become a false saint. Yi Guqin thought about it and became curious again. Given his talent, how many levels of Mount Saint Crossing could he pass? Could he reach the top and become a natural saint, which all the heavenly talents of the Sword Dynasty could not become? Yi Guqin was interested in Mount Saint Crossing. Dugu Wubai, what do you think? As long as you join Tensei College, I guarantee that there will be enough resources to train you. You can break through to the divine dwelling stage within a year. Given your talent, let alone the 10th level, it is not impossible for you to reach the 15th level, Hua Yuntao said in a low voice. In his view, all the heavenly talents could not resist this temptation. The older the ginger, the spicier it is. This condition is really too tempting. Yes, if it were me, I would definitely agree. There were many whispers in the audience. Some heavenly talents looked at Yi Guqin with undisguised envy. 1 year was enough for Yi Guqin to reach the 10th level of Mount Saint Crossing. This condition was really too tempting. This, head elder Ime. Bei Xian elder looked at Ime and hesitated. Ime looked at Yi Guqin indifferently and said, Dugu Wubai, actually, the dean also asked me to pass a message to you. Oh. Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows. What can the dean of the Divine Cliff sect offer? Hua Yuntao snorted. Everyone else also perked up their ears to listen. Ime cleared her throat and said, the dean said that if you join Sacred Cliff College, you will be treated the same as all the other disciples. You have to fight for everything yourself. That's it. Bei Xian elder was stunned. That's it, head elder Ime said indifferently. The crowd wore strange looks on their faces. What was the dean of Sacred Cliff College thinking? Did he still want to recruit the sword demon? Interesting. Hua Yuntao couldn't help but laugh. The dean of the Divine Cliff College really didn't play by the rules. But so what? Even a fool would know how to choose, right? Wu Hongyan looked at Yi Guqin. She was also very curious about what this master, who made Mu Xingzu follow him willingly, would choose. At this moment, Yiguchen was the center of attention. They all wanted to know if Yiguchen would change his choice. Ha! Hua Yuntao, you underestimate me, Dugu Wubai, Yiguchen said indifferently. What do you mean? Hua Yuntao's face darkened. Yiguchen dared to call him by his name. This was a great disrespect to a false saint. It's just Mount Saint Crossing, why do I need to borrow the power of the college? In 3 months, I, Dugu Wubai, will break through Mount Saint Crossing. Yiguchen raised his head, his black hair fluttering in the wind. It was as if he could soar to the clouds and swallow thousands of miles. The moment his voice fell, the surrounding void sword chi exploded, and the sky changed color. One word, the world turned upside down. Dead silence. As if all sound had been extracted, the world was dead silent. At this moment, whether it was Yiguchen's friends, companions, or enemies, they were all dumbfounded. In 3 months, break through Mount Saint Crossing. What kind of arrogant words were these? Even Hua Wuxiu, who was 3rd on the sword ranking, had prepared for a year and a half before breaking through Mount Saint Crossing. He had also received a lot of training from Tensei College and the Hua family. Yiguchen was only at the Spirit Bridge stage, not even at the Divine Dwelling stage. Imei had also expressed that she would not give Yiguchen any special treatment. In addition, there were only 3 months left. What qualifications did Yiguchen have to break through Mount Saint Crossing? Even if he did break through, how many levels could he pass? Arrogant brat! Hua Yuntao roared, unable to restrain his anger. Yiguchen's words, in his eyes, were indeed extremely arrogant. Let alone Hua Yuntao, even those who supported Yiguchen felt that Yiguchen's words were too arrogant. Sigh, little friend Dugu is still too impulsive. Qin Jin sighed deeply. Mount Saint Crossing was one of the 4 great secret domains of the Sword Dynasty. How could it be so easy to break through? Hua Wuxiu and the others had to be fully prepared if they were to attempt the trial. Young Master Dugu, sigh. Han Lingxian bit her lip, also sighing. Yiguchen had indeed created many miracles. But Mount Saint Crossing was a place that tested the aptitude of a saint. It was not something that could be easily passed. Otherwise, there would be more than just a few Holy Emblem disciples in the entire Sword Dynasty. A little domineering, but unfortunately, he is still a little impulsive. There was a hint of admiration in Wu Hongyan's beautiful eyes. After all, her personality could also be considered domineering. Yiguchen's personality was very much to her liking. But as a matter of fact, even Wu Hongyan believed that no matter how talented Yiguchen was, 3 months was too short to change anything. Passing through the holy mountain with such strength, not to mention the 10th floor, even passing through the 3rd floor would be a miracle. Chapter 9:17. Yiguchen's words indeed shocked everyone. But after the uproar, the majority of people looked at Yiguchen with suspicion. It was understandable for a young man to be frivolous. But if it was pure arrogance, it would appear a little ignorant. As one of the 4 great secret domains of the Sword Dynasty, Mount Saint Crossing had always been respected by many experts. To pass the 10th level of Mount Saint Crossing and become a disciple of the Holy Emblem was the goal of all the heaven prides of the 5 great academies. In the face of Mount Saint Crossing, even someone as strong as Hua Wuxiu had to carefully prepare and go all out. And Yiguchen's words, in the eyes of others, were not only looking down on Mount Saint Crossing, but also stepping on the heaven prides who regarded Mount Saint Crossing as a sacred goal. I originally asked for this Dugu Wubai because I admired his courage to face the Hua family and the false saint, but now it seems that Dugu Wubai's temperament still needs to be sharpened. Yes, he dared to say such words without knowing Mount Saint Crossing. He is a little ignorant. Some lords also revealed a look of disappointment. They admired Yiguchen for being able to face the pressure of the Hua family. They thought that the unaffiliated cultivator camp had finally produced a heaven pride who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Hua Wuxiu. However, Yiguchen's current performance had left them slightly disappointed. Dugu Wubai, you don't have to be like this. Bei Xian Elder also advised. In his view, given Yiguchen's talent, he might be able to pass the 10th level if he cultivated wholeheartedly for a year and broke through to the divine dwelling stage. As for 3 months, it was really too rushed. Even Great Elder Yi Mei's face was a little solemn, but he didn't say anything. Feeling the many questioning gazes around, Yiguchen's expression was calm and collected. Mount Saint Crossing may be an insurmountable moat in the eyes of others. But for Yiguchen, such a challenge was interesting. Good boy, since you are so confident, why don't you make a bet with me? Hua Yuntao squinted his eyes, revealing a trace of coldness. What are we betting? Yiguchen asked calmly. In 3 months, if you can pass the 10th level of Mount Saint Crossing, my Hua family will do its best to satisfy you. Of course, if you can't pass, then this old man won't make things difficult for you, as long as you join my Hua family, Hua Yuntao said. Oh. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows. Joining the Hua family was tantamount to controlling Yiguchen and turning Yiguchen into a dog of the Hua family. Dugu Wubai, you don't have to agree. Bei Xian Elder said hurriedly. He was afraid that Yiguchen would agree to Hua Yuntao's bet. But can your Hua family give me what I want? Yiguchen sneered. What do you want? Hua Yuntao asked calmly. Yiguchen then listed a few things, including soul crystals, sacred soul medicine, and the materials needed to refine his doppelganger. Hua Yuntao squinted his eyes and said, we don't have any sacred soul medicine, but the Hua family has one bone molding pill. Okay. Yiguchen said with a deep look in his eyes. He knew in his heart that it was impossible for such a large Hua clan to not have even a single stock of soul-type panacea. Hua Yuntao must also know that the sacred soul medicine might be helpful to Yiguchen's cultivation. So he didn't take it out. But the bone molding pill was only useful for people who were missing limbs or had broken bones. Hua Yuntao couldn't see why Yiguchen wanted the bone molding pill. So he directly threw out the bone molding pill. Sigh. Bei Xian Elder sighed deeply. Hua Yuntao's bet had completely trapped Yiguchen. In everyone's eyes, this was a bet that had already been decided. In the end, Yiguchen would still be pulled into the Hua family. This kid is still too young and ignorant. Hua Mo sneered. What was the use of creating such a storm? In the end, it was all in vain. Okay, let's go. Dugu Wubai, I'll be waiting for you at Mount Saint Crossing in 3 months. If you don't keep your promise. Hua Yuntao's voice suddenly turned cold, and the temperature of the surroundings seemed to drop. Don't worry, I won't go so far as to break my promise, Yiguchen said casually. Hua Yuntao was expressionless as he left with Hua Mo and the other members of Tensei College, as well as the prodigies who had joined Tensei College. Following the departure of Heavenly Saint Academy, the tense atmosphere in the area suddenly relaxed. Heroes come from the young. When the time comes, Long River College will definitely be there to watch the ceremony. Elder Yin Li from Long River College sneered. Yin Wufeng from the Yin family had also been beaten up badly by Yiguchen. Naturally, Yin Li didn't have a good impression of Yiguchen. After that, the people from Long River College also left with a group of prodigies. Brother Dugu's courage is admirable. In 3 months, I will also go to Mount Saint Crossing to watch the ceremony. When the time comes, I hope that Brother Dugu will not be stingy with his guidance. Jiang Fengmian smiled faintly and elegantly. What does Jiang Fengmian mean? Is he going to step on Dugu Wubai as well? Many people were surprised. Jiang Fengmian, you. Mu Xingzu frowned. She felt that Jiang Fengmian was targeting Yiguchen because of her. It's okay. I will naturally fight with young Master Jiang in the future, Yiguchen said. Goodbye. Jiang Fengmian saluted. Hey, Dugu Wubai, although you are not weak, don't brag too much. My cousin will probably fight with you, Shenguan Yan said. Yiguchen was puzzled. It's Shenguan Jingshen, that annoying guy. Mu Xingzu mumbled. It seems that you are quite popular. Yiguchen did not mind and smiled faintly. No. Xingzhu has never cared about any man, except. Mu Xingzhu blushed and mumbled. You don't have to care about my feelings when it comes to relationships. If it is suitable, you can decide for yourself, Yi Guqin said. Mu Xingzhu twisted her fingers together and sighed in her heart. After seeing how outstanding Yi Guqin was, which man could enter Mu Xingzhu's eyes? If you underestimate my cousin, you will suffer. Shen Guanyan saw that Yi Guqin was not nervous at all and could not help but snort. After that, Shen Guanyan also left with the people from Sun Moon College. Only the people from Sacred Cliff College and Tianxian College were left in the entire Thunder Prison Mountain. The atmosphere was no longer as tense as before. It was obvious that the relationship between these two colleges was quite good. Dugu Wubai, your courage is commendable. Elder Ime smiled amiably. I have embarrassed myself in front of you elders. Yi Guqin cupped his fists slightly. Seeing Yi Guqin's current attitude, Elder Ime, Bei Xian Elder, and the others were all puzzled. At this moment, it seemed that Yi Guqin was not an arrogant person. Perhaps, he really had the confidence to pass the sacred mountain. No matter what happens 3 months later, at least now, you are a disciple of Sacred Cliff College, Elder Ime said with a smile. Just as Yi Guqin was about to leave with Elder Ime, a mature and gentle voice suddenly sounded. Wait, I still have something to talk to this young man. Wu Hongyan's flawless face was staring at Yi Guqin with a faint smile. Ahem. You guys talk first, I am not in a hurry. Elder Ime coughed dryly and hurriedly retreated as if he was avoiding a tigress. Wu Hongyan was someone that even their dean did not want to provoke. It was better to stay away from a female fake saint with a violent temper. Chapter 9:18. Yi Guqin remained calm when he sensed Wu Hongyan's gaze on him. He did not sense any malice from Wu Hongyan. In addition, Wu Hongyan had helped him before. Yi Guqin still had good intentions toward this woman. Thank you for your help this time, Dean Wu. Yi Guqin cupped his hands in salute. What Dean Wu? You're so old-fashioned. Call me big sister. Wu Hongyan raised her brows and crossed her arms. Yi Guqin was speechless, and I didn't do it to help you. I did it to help that stubborn girl, Xingzhu. Wu Hongyan gritted her teeth as soon as she saw Mu Xingzhu. When Mu Xingzhu passed the 15th level of Mount Saint Crossing, Wu Hongyan was naturally the happiest. This was like picking up a treasure. Wu Hongyan did not hesitate and immediately wanted to take Mu Xingzhu as her disciple. However, Mu Xingzhu rejected her. Many people could not understand why Mu Xingzhu would reject the disciple request of a false sage. In the end, Mu Xingzhu said that she already had a master. Now, the truth was out. Even Wu Hongyan did not expect that the master that Mu Xingzhu spoke of was Yi Guqin. Wu Hongyan felt angry when she thought of this. Her delicate body flashed and directly appeared in front of Yi Guqin. She bent down slightly. Her beautiful face was as charming as a fox immortal as she approached Yi Guqin. A rich and fragrant scent wafted toward him. Yi Guqin faced it calmly. Kong Kong stood beside Yi Guqin. Her little face was dazed. She covered her nose with both hands again. Blood flowed out from between her fingers. The weather today is so big and so round, Kong Kong felt that she would die from excessive blood loss. Dugu Wubai, you stole my beloved disciple. What should you do? Wu Hongyan asked with a smile. Dean, you're too close. Mu Xingzhu couldn't help but mutter softly. Oh, the little girl is jealous. Don't worry, I won't pull out this tender grass. The person she likes is the Sword King. Wu Hongyan couldn't help but tease. Senior Wu, it's Xingzhu's decision on who she chooses as her master. I can't influence her, Yi Guqin said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. What if I want you to dissolve your master-disciple relationship with Xingzhu? Wu Hongyan was still smiling, but her words seemed to freeze the air. Principal, you. Mu Xingzhu's expression froze. Yi Guqin's expression didn't change, and he said indifferently, unless Xingzhu is willing, I can't abandon her. Oh. Wu Hongyan took a step forward, and the aura of a false saint burst out. Yi Guchen was under pressure again, but his expression didn't change. Bei Xian Elder and the others were a little nervous. They were afraid that Wu Hongyan would do something. After all, Wu Hongyan had always been fearless. She could do anything. Seeing that Yi Guchen was indifferent, Wu Hongyan withdrew her aura, and her expression softened. It seems that Xingzhu didn't choose you for no reason. I don't ask for much. If you can pass the 10th level of Mount Saint Crossing in 3 months, you'll still be Xingzhu's master. However, if you can't pass it, it proves that you're no longer qualified to be Xingzhu's master. Of course. Yi Guchen nodded. Even Mu Xingzhu had passed the 15th level. If Yi Guchen couldn't pass the 10th level, he was indeed no longer qualified to teach Mu Xingzhu. Master. Mu Xingzhu's expression changed slightly. Don't you trust me? Yi Guchen smiled. Mu Xingzhu bit her lip with her pearly white teeth and nodded firmly. Seeing this, Wu Hongyan's lips curled into a faint smile. To be honest, Wu Hongyan didn't think that Yi Guchen would have the strength to reach the 10th level of Mount Saint Crossing in 3 months. When that time came, Wu Hongyan could take advantage of the situation and accept Mu Xingzhu as her disciple. Of course, Wu Hongyan wasn't scheming. She just wanted to train Mu Xingzhu better. Alright, let's leave it at that for the time being. Wu Hongyan waved her hand. Dean, I think. Mu Xingzhu wanted to say something, but stopped. You're helping an outsider. Go ahead. However, remember that you're still a disciple of the Holy Emblem of Tianxian College. Wu Hongyan touched her forehead. Thank you, Dean. Mu Xingzhu was delighted. She knew that although the female dean was a little overbearing and violent, she was still kind at heart. Then, Wu Hongyan and the other people of Tianxian College left. Kong Kong looked at Wu Hongyan's back reluctantly. His nose was bleeding. In the end, Kong Kong, Han Lingxian, and Yan Wuka all joined Sacred Cliff College. Alright, let's go back to the college. Elder Ime waved his hand. Yi Guchen and the others boarded Sacred Cliff College's ship and headed towards Sacred Cliff College. With the departure of Sacred Cliff College, the 5 Academy selection also came to an end. However, one could imagine what kind of shock the appearance of Yi Guchen, the Dark Horse, would cause in the Sword Dynasty. After all, hundreds of lords and people from various aristocratic families had witnessed the rise of the Sword Demon with their own eyes. It wouldn't take long for the name of the Sword Demon to sweep through the entire Sword Dynasty like a storm. Everyone would know that another monstrous figure would rise in the Sword Dynasty. Of course, along with the fame, there would be even more criticism. After all, Yi Guchen challenging Mount Saint Crossing in 3 months was indeed a little arrogant in the eyes of others. There were even some people who were hostile to Yi Guchen, such as the Hua family, the Yin family, the Yu family, and so on. They were all waiting for Yi Guchen to embarrass himself at Mount Saint Crossing in 3 months. If Yi Guchen couldn't pass by then, not only would he lose Mu Xingzhu as his disciple, but he would also become a slave of the Hua family. The name of the Sword Demon would also fall. In the eyes of the crowd, what could be changed in these short 3 months? Not long after the 5 Academies selection ended. Somewhere in the Sword Dynasty, on top of a mountain. A pavilion was located in the middle of it. As far as the eye could see, the sea of clouds was billowing, and the scenery was spectacular. Inside the pavilion, a middle-aged man was leaning against the pavilion pillar. He was wearing a snow-white robe, and his face was incomparably handsome. There was a cinnabar mole between his eyebrows, which made the man handsome and at the same time had a sense of mystery. Beside him was a red umbrella, and one hand was holding a wine gourd. When did the human world have wine? Asking the heavens about love, the man picked up the wine gourd and took a long sip. He was unadorned and handsome, like a jade mountain that was about to collapse. At this moment, a stooped figure stepped on the sea of clouds and landed in the pavilion. The man raised his eyes and looked at the person who came. It was an old man with a stooped body and a walking stick. His snow-white beard was very long, like a horsetail whisk that dragged to the ground. If Yiguchin was here, he would definitely be surprised. This old man was the crippled old man who asked him for wine in Thunder City. Sword King, you are really in the mood for leisure. The crippled old man looked at the middle-aged man and laughed. Confusi, is everything done? The middle-aged man's lips curved into a warm smile. If the name Confusi was passed to the ears of anyone in the Sword Dynasty, it would definitely shock them. Because the mysterious dean of Sacred Cliff College was Confusi. Chapter 919. It's done. I got Ime to do it. Yiguchin has already joined Sacred Cliff College, Confusi said with a smile. As expected of Yiguchin, the one who stole the primordial sword and stirred up a storm. Even in my Sword Dynasty, he's still unwilling to remain silent. Even I'm a little curious about the Mount Saint crossing in 3 months. The man called Sword Sovereign chuckled and continued drinking. I'm a little curious. When did Sword Sovereign know that Yiguchin had come to the Sword Dynasty? Confusi asked. He has the Sword Master token. I sensed it the moment he stepped into the Sword Dynasty, but I wasn't sure. The man shook his head slightly. It's indeed surprising. I heard that Yiguchin survived after taking the 9 death no regrets pill. Confusi also sighed with emotion. Yiguchin was really lucky. Perhaps, this is fate. The man's eyes flickered inexplicably. Sword Sovereign, do you mean that Yiguchin has the ability to save the Alliance Master? Confusi asked in surprise. I'm not sure, but it's rumored that he's also a member of the Sword Sect Echelon and has the primordial sword. If he performs well on Mount Saint Crossing, then it's indeed possible, the man said slowly. Sword Sovereign, do you think that Yiguchin can compare to your disciple, Jian Jinghong? Confusi asked. Yiguchin can use the primordial sword God-devouring sword, so there's no need to compete. But if he can't, Jian Jinghong has the embryonic form of the heavenly Tao sword intent. He might not be weaker than Yiguchin, the man said indifferently. The sword intent of the creation realm is indeed powerful. But no matter what, Yiguchin and Jian Jinghong are both candidates. It's been 5 years since the Alliance Master was trapped. Confusi sighed slightly. The Sword Dao Alliance Master had not appeared for 5 years. Although it was announced to the public that he was in seclusion, some of the aristocratic families in the Sword Dao Alliance could no longer hold back. Over the years, the fake saint families led by the Hua family couldn't sit still and began to wantonly recruit the lords of various regions. If it weren't for Sword Sovereign, it's hard to imagine how chaotic the Sword Dynasty would be. Confusi let out a long sigh. The identity of the man in front of him was none other than that. It was the Sword Dao Alliance's vice-alliance leader, Sword Sovereign, Heavenly Sentiment. It's not just those aristocratic families. The War God Dynasty, the Mola Dynasty, and the tyrannical Saber Dynasty are probably unable to hold themselves back as well. Heavensoft smiled faintly. The Sword Dynasty was still the leader of the 100 great dynasties. Everything seemed calm and tranquil, but a storm was brewing in the dark. If not for fear, the Sword Dao Alliance's Alliance Master would still be alive. Most likely, these forces would have already lost their patience and attacked, tearing apart the Sword Dynasty like hungry wolves. Alliance leader, is he really still here? Even Confusi couldn't help but ask. After all, the Sword Dao Alliance's Alliance Master hadn't appeared for 5 years. Don't worry, Big Brother was able to contend against a true heavenly tribulation saint as a fake saint. He won't die so easily. Heavensoft smiled faintly, looking extremely handsome. Next, it's up to Yiguchin's performance on Mount Saint Crossing. The matter of rescuing Big Brother can't be delayed for too long. Heavensoft got up, pinned the wine gourd to his waist, and held up the red umbrella in his hand. He stepped on the sea of clouds, as ethereal as a celestial being descending to the mortal world, handsome and ethereal. Looking at Heavensoft's departing figure, Confusi clicked his tongue and sighed. In the 5 years that the Sword Dao Alliance's alliance master disappeared, the Sword Dynasty was plagued by internal and external troubles, and all the pressure was on Heavensoft. But Heavensoft was able to keep the external troubles at bay with his own strength. Outside, he intimidated the War God Dynasty, the Mola Dynasty, the tyrannical Saber Dynasty, and other powerful dynasties. Internally, he suppressed the Hua family, the Jiang family, the Yin family, the Shengguan family, and other fake saint families. If it weren't for the Sword King, the Sword Dynasty would have been in chaos. Confuzi shook his head and sighed. Although he was a fake saint expert and one of the best among the 5 deans, he still felt powerless in the face of such chaos. I really don't know if Yiguchen is the 7th Sword Master's chosen one. If he can really rescue the Alliance leader, then it's not impossible for him to become the Lord of the Sword Dynasty in the future, let alone the position of Jinkui, Confuzi muttered to himself. In the sky, a huge ship crossed the void. It was the ship of Sacred Cliff College. Yiguchen took the ship to the location of Sacred Cliff College. Along the way, Mu Xingzu stuck close to Yiguchen and did not leave his side at all. After all, she had heard that Yiguchen had died. Now that she had regained what she had lost, one could imagine how Mu Xingzu felt. It was reasonable for her to act like this. This made Han Lingxian feel a little jealous. Yiguchen did not mind. After all, Yiguchen was still able to be with his old friends in an unfamiliar dynasty. This made him sigh. I wonder how the people of the Sword Sect are doing. Yiguchen sighed in his heart. Yan Changge, Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, Chu Qingqi, and Yi Xie flashed past one by one. Yan Wushuang and the others have passed the preliminaries. They should be participating in the Prodigy battlefield. I can see them then, Yiguchen thought to himself. When they arrived at the Prodigy battlefield, the name of the Sword Sect's Yiguchen would reappear in the world. Yan Wushuang and the others would also know that Yiguchen was not dead. He was still alive and even stronger. There's also Master Feng, Hongxue, Su Jianshi. Yiguchen was most apologetic towards these 3 people. Yiguchen did not know what happened to Feng Manlu. He thought that Feng Manlu had already fallen. Master, I will definitely avenge you. Hongxue, one day, I will go to the Immortal Valley to find you and Su Jianshi. Within 3 years, I will step into the Heavenly God Sword Sect's mountain gate and find you. Yiguchen's eyes were cold. He needed to grow quickly, and the Sword Dynasty's Sacred Cliff College was the best place for Yiguchen to grow. After a few days, Yiguchen finally arrived at the location of Sacred Cliff College. Sacred Cliff College was located in the Divine Cliff Ridge of the 360 Ridges. The entire ridge was named after Sacred Cliff College. After entering the Divine Cliff Ridge, Yiguchen finally saw Sacred Cliff College after a few hours. Sacred Cliff College was not built in the city, but in a paradise. Yiguchen looked around and saw an undulating mountain range. Clouds and mist were rising and falling, and the cliffs were strange peaks. The mountains were beautiful, and the clouds were scattered. It was a blessed land of immortals. At least in the Saint Origin dynasty, it was impossible to find a paradise with such abundant spiritual qi. There were many palaces and pavilions in the Blessed Enclave. Many figures could be seen flashing through them. This paradise is called the Divine Cliff Paradise. It's where Sacred Cliff College is located. Bei Xian Elder saw the surprise in Yiguchen's eyes. He could not help but puff out his chest and smile proudly. This paradise was probably one of the few things Sacred Cliff College was proud of. It is indeed a paradise for cultivation. Yiguchen could not help but say. Of course. After all, Sacred Cliff College was the first college established in the Sword Dynasty. Bei Xian Elder could not help but sigh as he recalled the glorious past. Oh, Sacred Cliff College had such a past. Yiguchen raised his eyebrows. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.